Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 853 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Russia's defending against yet another uprising, and also the bombs are exploding pretty much everywhere at this point. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we are going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And we have gotten absolutely massive news as the uprising within the area of Dagestan apparently is continuing with really no signs of stopping. Really moving on into its third day of open uprisings and the third day of Russian special military operations within the area of the Republic of Dagestan. We have also been able to get additional news that apparently Ukrainian drones have been able to breach the frontline air defense perimeter that the Russian Federation has set up in the area of Belgorod, Vovchansk, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, and not only were able to breach the perimeter with frontline or really short-range kamikaze drones, but were able to blow up one of the largest ammunition depots within the region, creating one of the single largest explosions of the war. Absolutely unbelievable news, while at the exact same time, Ukrainian drones attacked the city of Belgorod, destroying some of the very few air defense systems that they have in the area. We were also able to hear that a major research institute called on fire in Moscow, responsible for researching vital Russian military tech, while at the exact same time, Lavrov has come out with a statement completely contradicting Putin's prior peace offering to the Ukrainians, saying that there would be no ceasefire during negotiations with Ukraine. We also got additional big news that EU talks are finally beginning with Ukraine, and we also were able to get news that the United States and NATO is building one of the largest NATO air bases. In fact, it will be the largest NATO air base in history inside of Romania to counter the Russians within the area. All of this and a whole lot more is going to be covered tonight. We have an insanely high amount of news, and it is an absolutely insane bit. I'm actually having a hard time keeping track of it in my head to make sure that this monologue comes off really well. That's actually how much we have. It's an insane amount. But we're going to be moving y'all into probably the biggest news that we got today, which were the large drone attacks that occurred in the frontline air defense perimeter and successfully made it to their targets. The reason why I'm heavily emphasizing a frontline air defense perimeter is because, for the large part, from what we understand, Russian air defense throughout the entirety of the Federation is practically non-existent at this point, except for the area around the front line, which we call on this channel the frontline air defense perimeter. This perimeter consists of air defenses that have been set up along the areas of the border around Belgorod, Vovchansk, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, and are meant to provide some sort of a shield for the Russian forces and the Russian logistical operations that are occurring within these areas that are very sensitive and very vulnerable to Ukrainian attack. We were able to see the Ukrainian drones not only made it through the frontline air defense perimeter, but actually struck targets that would be within the perimeter, meaning that Russian air defense completely failed today in its actions to be able to try and stop Ukrainian drones not only from entering Russian airspace, but from protecting the frontline areas from possible Ukrainian drone attack. And that brings us to the small city of Olkovatka, a tiny, insignificant village that most people have probably not heard about up until this point. This little village is home to a major Russian ammunition depot that is somewhere on the outskirts, but sadly I've not been able to geolocate, although we did get satellite pictures of the actual compound a little while ago. But nevertheless, this is the city that this ammunition depot is around, and from what we were able to see, the explosion that resulted from the Ukrainian drone hitting this ammo dump was absolutely insane. Here is the video of the massive fire and explosion that began to unfold after a Ukrainian drone slammed down dead center into this ammunition depot and caught one of the buildings on fire.
Сегодня вот у нас взорвали склад боеприпасов. Взрывы были, блядь, с 3 часов ночи до сих пор.
But that thing is snap, crackling, and popping like popcorn. And from what we could tell, the Ukrainians whipped out the popcorn when this thing was blowing up, because the amount of damage that was caused was, from what we understand, incredibly significant. From what we know, hundreds of tons of ammunition was stored at this ammunition facility, meaning that the amount of ammo that was most likely destroyed in this fire was probably incredibly severe. We were able to get a satellite view of the ammo dump apparently after the fire, and we can see that it appears that an entire 4 buildings, there's one here, one here, one here, and one right here, and also a couple of other small dugouts, pretty much, that appear to be on fire or smoking as well, that were all destroyed. It appears that there were only 2 buildings left standing. These 2 right here, the one with the red roof, and the one that has a mixture of mud brown and then tin foil covering the rooftop over here. These were the only 2 sheds in this ammunition depot that existed once the explosions were over. But nevertheless, this is something very interesting to see, that apparently, from what we know, the Ukrainians were able to hit the ammo dump, cause serious damage, and pretty much wipe out most of it. It was also so severe of an explosion, although we only have 10 seconds of footage, we do understand that the explosion was so severe that the Volchansk city administration shut the entire city down and sent police out in every direction around the town to close off the entrance into Volchansk, meaning that no one could enter the town, but people could leave the town if they wanted to, considering that there was literally a massive nuclear explosion. Well, I'm exaggerating about that, but a massive conventional explosion would probably be the best way to say that, going on just right outside the town. And we were able to see that a massive traffic jam was being caused because of these roadblocks that were set up. This is one of the traffic jams that started to form outside of Volchansk during the serious explosion that was going on.
Look at the casual propaganda banner right there on the bridge too.
Yeah, let's see what it says. It says, let's see, Rososh, Gorod, Boinskoy, Dovlesti, and then it has a Z. Unfortunately, I don't know what this part means, but this is like Russian city, and then it says something else. Sadly, I don't know what the something else is.
It says, "We're losing the war, Z."
We're losing the water, baby! But anyway, so you can see them driving on under that bridge. We can also see a Ural 4320 here with a camouflage net, which is actually really rare for a supply truck to have. And with that, the video then starts to repeat, but nevertheless, it is wonderful to see that apparently so much damage was caused with this ammunition dump, and the fire and explosion that resulted from it was so severe, they ended up shutting down an entire city today that was on a major roadway. Let me show y'all why this is a major roadway. You see, Volchansk isn't just a town with an ammunition dump inside of it, it is also a town with a paved highway, traveling from Russia, which you can see right here, down into the area of Ukraine, all the way down here. This is where the highway starts in Ukraine. And then from there, it moves from Avdiivka all the way through Russia to Starobilsk, which right now is just a little ways away from the active front line near Svatove, meaning that this is also a part of a major supply corridor. The fact that this explosion shut down that highway for a little bit of time means that Russian logistics lost a few hours of efficiency because the main highway they took to get to this area of Ukraine was closed due to a massive explosion happening just maybe a half mile away from the highway. But nevertheless, this news is absolutely big because a breach of the air defense perimeter is normal. But a breach of the air defense perimeter and then an attack happening within the air defense perimeter is absolutely unheard of. Very rarely do we see something like this happen, especially in Russian territory this close to the Ukrainian border. And it is showing that Russian air defense, even in the border regions, even in the frontline air defense perimeter, is weakening so badly, there really is no way for them to be able to stop Ukrainian drones from even attacking precious and very sensitive frontline assets. Meanwhile, in the area of Belgorod, things were also very similar, as Ukrainian drones started to fly in apparently in the droves, really meaning no air defense resistance at all, and hitting multiple different areas within the city. Here is one of the clips, and from what we understand, some of these Ukrainian drones ended up running into some buildings. We're not sure if these buildings had collaborators or city administration officials or city administration inside of them, but here are the clips of what we saw from the Ukrainian drone attacks that occurred overnight in Belgorod. We can hear one of the drones flying over, we can see a flash, and the explosion, letting us know that it hit its target, dead on the nail.
I know that the Russians will never build multiple launch again. This is terrible. It's just traumatizing to hear that lawnmower flying over and then that happened.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, lawns in Russia, they're never getting mowed again. Like,
Блядь!
that was the most theatrical bliat I have ever heard. Bliat! But anyways. Oh.
Беспилотник.
Ебать!
Dang.
Я заснял!
Yeah.
Охуеть!
Охуеть. But nevertheless, that drone attack ended up being a little bit successful, at least in making its way through the air defense and then hitting the city. We also got 2 additional clips of the attacks as well. One right here.
Блядь!
Actually, that's the same guy, interestingly enough. And then one right here.
Man, you know it must suck to live in Belgorod at this point. Like, the people in Crimea thought they had it bad for a while, but now Belgorod is becoming even more of a war zone than sometimes Crimea, like Sevastopol and places like that. The real estate market there must be going downhill fast because it's just like explosions every other day in Belgorod.
Man, I'm telling you what, there's got to be some prime real estate going for sale in Belgorod right now, because people have got to be trying to leave at this point, because it's not getting any better for them. It's getting worse, as a matter of fact, as the war keeps going. And Belgorod, at this point, is getting bombarded about as heavily as I would say Kharkiv is being bombarded by the Russians at this point. So you know they're not really that big of a fan of staying around. And not only that, what's even crazier is that not only did these drones make it through the frontline air defense perimeter, they also hit the frontline air defense perimeter. No joke. We actually got to see that a Pantsir S1 system was destroyed in Belgorod right there. This is literally right outside the city. This is a part of the literal air defense perimeter, and it got blown up. Like, there's the picture of it right there turning into a puff of cloud as it got exploded. This is, and then also, by the way, I forgot to mention, a second one got exploded as well. Mr. President, there's been a second Pantsir, but we can see it blowing up right there as well. And of course, absolutely amazing to see that not only were these drones able to target and possibly hit military sites within Belgorod, but they were also able to hit Russian Pantsir S1 systems as well, which are getting rarer and rarer, mind everyone, as the war keeps going. The Russians don't really have the ability to produce advanced air defense systems, especially like the Pantsir S1, and so as these vehicles keep getting destroyed, the Russians are losing things that they cannot replace. Sure, they have the money. I mean, technically, they do have the money to be able to replace these things because they're only like $15 million a piece, I believe a Pantsir is. But at the same time, where in the world do they get the materials to make a Pantsir S1, like the computer components to make one function? They don't get those from anywhere at this point. And so, this is a massive success, a massive win for the Ukrainian forces being able to knock out these 2 Pantsir systems. Meanwhile, in Shebekino, we also got to see that things are really just going badly in Belgorod all around. As many people know, directly connected to Belgorod is the Russian offensive in the Vovchansk front, which we understand is continuing to consume Russian soldiers like a blender. It is insane how many casualties are being taken by the Russian Federation on a daily basis within the area of Vovchansk. And while many of those soldiers do end up getting killed, there is an equally higher number of them that end up getting wounded and returning back into the Russian Federation if they're not shot by their own comrades once they fall wounded. From what we understand, we can see that the military hospitals in the area are being completely overrun with wounded being evacuated out of the Vovchansk front. And everyone has to remember that we have seen enough proof in the past to show that when Russian soldiers get wounded, there's a pretty high chance they'll never make it back into Russia. Either one of their comrades will shoot them in the head and kill them on the spot, or they'll be put into a basement and squalor until they volunteer, or really voluntold themselves back onto the front line so that way they can continue to work in the meat grinder. These are the few Russians that actually make it off of the front line and back into Russia for medical assistance. And the number is extremely high. It's unbelievable how overcrowded this one hospital in Belgorod is. But I'm going to be showing you all the clip, and just keep in mind, this is the average conditions at this moment for a Russian field hospital, if you want to call it that, near to the Vovchansk front. We can see stretchers out in the hallway. We can see soldiers just sitting here on the side of the wall waiting for some assistance. We can actually see that they got these guys side by side, shoulder to shoulder, because they're running out of space. And not only that, they even have bunks on the wall for further wounded as well. This guy's got a 2-liter Coke. Now, that's got to be the most unhealthy thing in the hospital.
For this to be a triage center, I don't see much treatment actually going on.
Yeah, I'm not really
Oh,
seeing...
look, food. Oh, there's the treatment. It's eat a piece of ham, bliat.
Eat this weirdly pink-looking shit. Like, I don't know if that's a ham or what, but it looks nasty. That doesn't even look like Spam, dude. Like, Spam at least has somewhat of a hamish-looking color. That is literally just pink. Like, I've never seen a ham that pink, if that is even ham.
I don't know what the hell that is, man. It could be anything. Mystery meat.
Dude, that is horse meat, 100% right there. They sent that thing to the glue factory. And we see one guy in a lazy boy over there. We only got to see him for like 5 seconds, though. More wounded, just sitting in the hospital, waiting for treatment of some sort. This guy has one crutch.
This is the most weird, like, field hospital I think I've ever seen. The weird music, like, lightly playing in the background. It's so quiet in here, and, like, food laying around. It's like, is it really a hospital, or is it, like, a hangout?
Bro, this is just a cookout. Like, they just hanging out at the local Russian cookout, man. There's nothing really going on that's medicinal in this hospital, but nevertheless, they're giving it a shot. But this hospital is completely overloaded, as we could tell, and it looks as though many hospitals are like that in the Belgorod region, once again showing that the Russian Federation is taking a substantial amount of casualties in the Vovchansk front. These soldiers are not being moved, by the way, mind you, from other areas. And dang, thank you so much, Kimberly Brokaw. But these soldiers are not being moved from other fronts, like Kupiansk, per se. If they were wounded in Kupiansk, they would most likely get moved back to Svatove or into the area of possibly Luhansk or Starobilsk. They would not be moved into the area just outside of Belgorod or around Shebekino. That means that all of those wounded that you saw came from the area directly around Vovchansk, and it is showing that that area is clearly a meat grinder at this moment. Meanwhile, inside of the Vovchansk front, we got to see that things were not going that well there. It appears that Magyar had some fun today and ended up chasing down a Russian with some drones. Check it out.
Але швиденько, експрес-іспит хробаків на БЗВП, базову загальновійськову підготовку. Десь на кордонах Запоребрика. Робачий п'ятак, пьос Барбос і незвичайний крос. Що там? Оп, стоп. Не напруг.
Oh, stop. Dude, that's what that Russian was saying. He was like, stop, please! And then Magyar was like, oh, stop. He's like, take a look.
Штучний інтелект ні Фейсбуку, ні Ютубу.
Dang.
Добрий день. Ідемо далі. Додам маленько по-закарпатськи. Кого укачує, краще не
They
позирайте.
come in hot.
Перший відбір не у
Dang, dude.
персонаж
Good
отримав.
lord.
Oh,
Маленько ся втомив.
man, he's going so
Другий
fast he
ще.
missed them all.
Сталося лем
Uh-oh.
троє.
Oh,
Це
crap.
задала файна завєцька пісня про насос, пам'ятаєте?
This guy's a menace.
Оставалось тільки троє.
Damn.
Визнаю, це етап,
Dude, this
як
guy's
у
just
фільмі
creeping him out a little.
«Афоня». Це динамічний танець. Для цензури у даній комп'ютерній грі жодна притомна жива істота
damn.
не
Dang, dude.
постраждала.
They're literally just playing
Хіба
around with him.
запитали якогось крота. Уф, скок. Шико.
Good lord, man.
Де падеш, вставай, бігнути ще треба.
And they're trying to outlast the battery at this point.
Yeah, honestly, they are.
Ух.
Oh,
О, вуйку, рано, рано ти падеш. Вибув. Ну що, фінал? Грати у полі у салочки, той ще кекс. Так ся видить ті двоє фіналістів під тим корчом. Як
Another one's
гадаєте?
coming.
От зараз увидимо.
Dang, Toad Man.
Гуру.
Thank you.
Гуру
dang. Thank you for being
маскування.
the first.
Але тому сей у повторі і уповільнено.
I am V Force at insane content.
Озирай на них.
Real trap shit. That's what I mean.
Знято. Актори вільні. Кить щось, другий ось там. Вже перетягнуто.
That's no car antenna.
He's got a fork
That's a
now.
fork. Like, what the hell happened to the car
A
antenna?
fork.
Is it? No, that's a fork, dude. That's like a plastic fork
Oh,
like we
yeah,
have.
that's a fork. Never mind.
Dude, that is
I was about to give
literally
him like an upgrade to a spork.
that's literally the same white plastic forks we have in our house, man. Like literally identical.
Там вже перетягнутий штурмфагелем тихої та й спокійної. Ось.
And we can see some stop motion pictures here of the Russians as they jumped and fled from the drone multiple times throughout the video. It's a bit of a picture montage of friends and buddies in the summertime. But with that,
And I
let's see-
thought they presented like a family photo album or something.
man, let me see 1 second, man. Dang. Hold up. Hold up, man. I gotta go pull up something. Let's see. 1 second. Hang on. I'm cooking here, man. Let me cook. Okay, so here we go. This is what they were doing.
Вже перетягнутий
Hang on, let me skip to the end.
тихої та й спокійної.
Hang on, here we go. Like, what the hell was the point of showing it like that?
Man,
know
this
what I
is
mean?
wild.
Man, I was trying to find some good music. That wasn't really what I was looking for, but that's kind of how it came off. A little bit. But nevertheless, very interesting to see, and interesting to know that Medyar is still out there while the unit is still in Kherson. That is a little bit of a confusing thing that I have to bring up and clarify really quickly. A lot of people will be saying, wait a minute, no. Medyar's birds is still with the 36th Marines down in the area around the Dnieper River. And yes, you would be right, but that's only a part of Medyar's birds, and only a part of the 36th Brigade is still in Kherson. Half of the 36th and some of Medyar's birds are actually up in the Vovchansk area, because they actually had to take some of the reserves from that side of the Dnieper River and quickly move them up to Vovchansk to close the gap. So yes, the Medyar's birds are in the Dnipro area and in Vovchansk at the exact same time, while the 36th Marines, which is their parent unit, also is as well. But moving on from that and into the area around Vovchansk itself, we got to see that the 92nd Brigade was able to pour some shells onto Russian positions. Check it out. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the Ukrainian tank right here. It just be rolling. And we can see a Toss barrage actually coming down near that tank. Tank doesn't care. Tank keeps tanking. Look at it go. It's getting up to that tree line, getting ready to hit those Russian positions. And we can now see some kind of incendiary or cluster rounds being used. But now the tank has made it, and it is starting to fire onto the Russian positions. And now we're getting a little quick clip montage here as the tank continues to fire. The Russians really not doing much to stop the tank. The tank really has a free reign at this point on those Russians. And it's just rolling on away now, still firing at the Russians. And we can see it's looped back around and it's firing on the Russians again. And now it's pulling away, and we can now see in real time what it looked like.
It looks a lot more dramatic with the real footage than the actual thermal.
I would have to completely agree with that. And we can see that multiple buildings are on fire, and now our little Ukrainian tank is just putt-putting away off into the distance after hitting the Russian positions a whole bunch of times. But that's the end of that clip. Really neat to see the 92nd Brigade doing its thing in the Vovchansk area, and once again trying to make sure that the Russians get pushed back. And a big reason why, the casualties we're seeing in military hospitals in the area appear to be overflowing the hospitals. Meanwhile, up in Moscow, we were able to hear that things were getting a little juicy. But we have also heard that meanwhile, down in the area of Dagestan, and the capital of the oblast, Makhachkala, if I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly. And Matthew, let's try to pronounce this as best we can. Makhachkala. Makhachkala, I think is how it would be pronounced. Makhachkala.
I think so.
There we go. I think I got it. In the town of Makhachkala, which is so hard to say, we were able to see that the uprising is still ongoing. We don't have a lot of footage of this coming out on a day-to-day basis, but we were able to see the Russian security forces were still having to deal, apparently, with separatists in the region, and we were able to get a small clip of that here from the capital of the oblast.
Возле больницы, что происходит, не знаю, но здесь что-то серьезное намечается.
Quite a number. And some of them are just cocking their guns a little bit late to the party, eh?
And where's this person filming from? They're like behind the shop facades and everything. They're like on the roof of something.
Dude, this is like they're filming from off of Main Street, USA at Disney World over the back of the buildings. Like, it's like, where the hell are they? Like, where is this? I have no idea, Matthew, actually. It's a complete mystery to me where they really are, but nevertheless, we can still see that uprisings are going on, and Russian security forces are still having to respond to them, which leads us to a pretty interesting question. This is actually one of the longest uprisings that we've ever seen happen in the area beyond the Ingushettian Liberation Army when they conducted their uprising last year. That lasted about 2.5 to 3 days, but this is now strongly into its third day, jockeying to be the longest uprising we've ever seen in the southern Russian area near to Chechnya. And a lot of people are wondering, will it continue or spread at all from where it is right now? And a lot of people are saying that it will continue, but it will stay fairly limited to just the area of the Republic of Dagestan. Others are saying that it will spread and continue further, maybe even piggybacking from Dagestan and across Chechnya, and then inciting the Ingushettians to uprise once again, maybe even others throughout the entirety of the Russian Don region. Maybe it could be an entire Russian revolt. Some people are saying that it will likely stop soon and Russian security forces will be able to put their foot down, or at least put down an iron fist on these folks, stopping them really from any other further uprisings. And some people are unsure and undecided on this topic. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking about what this is and what this means for the Russian Federation. It's probably one of the biggest underlying incidents that we've ever seen behind the lines, and once again, considering that it's dealing with an armed uprising, it is probably one of the most dangerous ones we've seen for the Russian Federation as well. But Matthew, what are people thinking about it? Do they think it's going to spread? Do they think it's going to stay limited? Or do they think that the Russian Federation will put their foot down and put a stop to this thing eventually over several days? And also, what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so now that we've seen for several days now, the uprising in Dagestan has been basically ongoing. It hasn't stopped. And now a quote-unquote second one has occurred today, a pretty big flare-up, actually. And the question is, will it continue or spread? It looks like 45% said it will continue in Dagestan, but it will stay limited to the area, while 30% said it will spread and also continue even further, and 14% said it will likely stop soon. And based on what we're seeing here, over 3 days, like the enforcer was saying, one of the longest running uprisings in Dagestan we've seen in a long time, I think it's going to continue to happen until the Russians have to come down and actually deal with it pretty seriously. But I think it will stay limited to Dagestan, because there are some reasons, which I won't really get into right now, about the differences between some people in Dagestan and some other groups in Dagestan. I'm having to choose my words kind of wisely. Spread to mainland Russia, in my opinion, but it's certainly going to keep going because it's not stopping, and it seems to be getting even worse, in my opinion, based on the videos we're seeing. So I'm with the 45%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would agree with a large majority, while our stream is apparently flatlined. So, oh my lord! Oh God!
Dear.
Hang on. It's a small
That
spike.
internet, I'm telling you what.
I'm telling you, man, it's just so freaking aggravating. But anyways, I would say that it most likely will continue, but it will stay very limited to the area of Dagestan. Like Matthew was saying, there's some reasons that we really can't go into on air. YouTube doesn't really like us mentioning specific groups, the specific ones that sound a lot like a group that existed quite formidably in the middle of the Middle East, in between Syria and Iraq. And in fact, its name stood for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Now, we can't say their actual abbreviation on air, funnily enough. YouTube doesn't really like it when that group is brought up on YouTube, and they don't really like it when we talk about their subsidiary branches, like the one that exists in Russia, that has pretty much the exact same name, but it ends with a K. So for that reason, considering it is that group that we understand is currently uprising in this area, we understand that this will stay highly limited to the region around Dagestan. So that's what I would have to say. I don't think this is going to spread. It's not like this is a rallying cry for many Russians. In fact, it's probably something they're greatly afraid of, is that there is a group like that in southern Russia uprising in the area right now. So I have a feeling that it probably will not spread, but it will continue. This group is very adamant, very fervent, and also very fanatical, meaning that they will continue this on until they're pretty much completely destroyed, or their forces have been far enough depleted that they'll pretty much go into hibernation again until they can build up their forces and then start an attack once more. So I have a feeling that this is going to remain very limited to the area, and we're not going to be seeing a massive swath of the Russian Federation go into open rebellion against the government, at least in my opinion.
So basically, you're saying that Dagestan, they like their Special K, but mainland Russia is not so much a fan of the Special K per se.
Not really. Like Russia has never really liked Special K. You know what I mean? But Dagestan and a couple of others, they really love Special K. I mean, they just enjoy, they gobble up Special K. And that brings us to tonight's sponsor. I'm just kidding, but nevertheless, it is something that will remain very limited to the area. Also, another thing that I have to say, and this is something that we really can't touch on too much either, but let me see. Let's see. Can I type this up? And let me see if I can get a map here. Hang on, y'all. I'm trying to see if I can actually find a map of this to show you all the regions here. So, from what we understand, many of y'all now hopefully catching on to the group that we're speaking of, from what we understand, it'll largely remain limited to the area because of a difference in ideology with most of the Russian Federation versus this particular area. And if I move y'all over to this map, which for no reason at all just shows the amount of Islamic peoples that live within the Russian Federation, you can notice that Dagestan, the area of Ingushetia, and I believe this area, oh man, dang it, man, I forgot the name of it, but this is well, actually, let's see. This would be the Republic of Chechnya. This would be Ingushetia, I suppose, and this would be Dagestan. But you can see that the number of Islamic peoples living within that region is incredibly high. You can also see that it's incredibly high near to the border of Kazakhstan. Of course, culturally, there's a big reason for that. And also historically, there's a big reason for that as well. But then you can see that most of the Russian Federation, if you look, most of them within the heartland of Russia are mostly Russian Orthodox, meaning that there's a big ideological difference in between the two. And, and of course we can't get into this too much, but this uprising is deeply founded within religious ideology, which means that there wouldn't really be a lot of people who would be apt to pick up the sword, really, for the uprising that's currently ongoing, because there's just a major ideological difference in between most Russians in this current group that is uprising right now. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, there's a whole bunch of other groups in the Russian Federation. One of them that I find really interesting is the pagans, because apparently there are just a lot of pagans out in eastern Russia, and also just a lot of them down in the Caucasus Mountain region for no reason. Like, that's something that I always found a little bit interesting. Like, huh, that's interesting. But anyways, moving on from that, I hope we address that the best we can, at least with the information that we have at the moment, because we can't really talk about that too succinctly. YouTube wouldn't really like that too much. And while y'all's support through the Super Chats does help us to be able to really say whatever we want on stream, that kind of a thing, actually, YouTube would probably come down and put the hammer on us if we said something like that, so we can't really get into it all too much. But with that, I hope we were able to address that incredibly well, and now it's time for us to move up into the area of Moskva, the capital of the Russian Federation, as we were able to hear the massive news that the Platon Research Institute, which is a defense industry that develops electronic devices for the Russian armed forces, caught on fire. Look at that. Now that's a fire.
That's a mega fire right there.
Now that's the end of that clip, but if it was up to me, y'all, I'd say that was sabotage. I don't know about y'all, but the whole building catching on fire like that, that's got to be sabotage. We are assuming, in all seriousness, that this most likely is some sort of a partisan sabotage that was conducted on this building, considering that it was central to Russian technological development within the electronics arena, which is a very important part of modern warfare. It does appear that this will most likely be some kind of a targeted attempt to destroy Russia's technological and scientific abilities. So that is, of course, really good to hear. Meanwhile, we got a really stupid statement from Lavrov at the exact same time today, where Lavrov said that Russia will not stop the special military operation during the negotiations on the settlement in Ukraine if they start. And then after he said that, he went, and so we were like, oh, okay, that is Lavrov. We do know that that is Lavrov. But beyond that, a lot of people have been wondering, wow, that's kind of stupid. That goes completely against what Putin said. Putin said that if they started negotiating, all they'd have to do is withdraw from all of the oblasts they're currently in right now, and then the negotiations would begin, and the ceasefire would immediately go into effect. Now Lavrov is coming out and saying that it's completely different. We are thinking that Lavrov may have not been able to get his morning ketamine, which is maybe why he was a little bit moody, much like most horses are when they do not have their ketamine, and so he came out and made a statement like that. But we don't really know for sure, and we're still trying to get comment from the Russian Institute of Health to figure out what was going on with Lavrov this particular day to make such a contradictory statement to what Putin said previously. Moving on out of Moscow, however, and on into the area of Belgium, we were also able to hear the big news that the European Union has begun membership talks. We were able to hear good news about this. The European Union has launched membership talks with Ukraine, a decade after Russian troops seized the Crimean Peninsula to deter the country from moving closer to the west. We don't believe that the Ukrainians are going to be getting into the European Union right now, but this certainly is a massive step forward and getting them on the path to actual European Union membership, which comes with a great deal of economic benefits that would help massively for Ukraine after the war and in their economic development. We can only wait and see if that actually will pan out, but for now, we just know that the process has finally begun, and the European Union is really looking at possibly making Ukraine an actual member state. Meanwhile, in Romania, another European Union country and also a member of NATO, we were able to hear that one of the most ambitious projects has begun for the largest NATO base in the entirety of Europe. It is going to be, by all measure, a super base, one of the largest ones in Europe, and not only that, housing multiple different countries that are a part of the NATO alliance, meaning that this won't be a US-run airfield, a British-run airfield, or a French-run airfield. This will be a NATO-operated airfield, being run by the actual NATO alliance itself, and housing multiple different countries under the same umbrella at the same airfield. This airfield is not that far from Constanta, which is a major Romanian port, which you can see right here. Which also, it's really interesting to see what they're doing out here. Because they have like this little barge pen right here. Do you see that, Matthew? It's like a little like dog pen. They put the barges in there and they just keep them there. That's kind of cool.
It looks like it's lumber or something like that. Are you sure those are barges?
Oh, those are barges, 100%. Look at that.
That's weird. It's like strewn around like they're just junk or something.
Yeah, it's really weird. But beyond us getting greatly distracted by this interesting looking port, which is actually really interesting. I'm not going to lie, this is actually an incredibly interesting port, and they also have some pretty substantial dry docks here. And is that a automotive carrier right there? Is that what I'm seeing?
It looks like it's pretty tall and top heavy, like one would be, but I can't tell for certain.
That is certainly a car carrier, dude, because you can see the side of it here, and it says Neptune Lines. And I think if I remember correctly, that company does do automotive transport. So this probably is an automotive carrier. Pretty neat. And they also have some sort of an older military vessel in the dry dock being refit as well in the satellite picture. There is just so much going on in Constanta. But what we're really here to talk about is what's going on outside of Constanta and north in the town of Mihail Koglanisanu. Did I say that correctly? I don't know. I'm hoping I did. Let me know in the chat. But beyond that, this airport right here is an international airport. But with a $2.7 billion investment by NATO as a whole, they are going to be turning this airport not just into a international airport inside of Romania. It is going to be the largest NATO base in the world, housing 10,000 NATO service members at a time and fielding many different nations' air forces at this one airfield. This post is from a suspended account. Isn't that unfortunate? Because it was not suspended earlier in the day. So So
Wait a minute. Click on the link again real quick. Like, click on the little listing. Wait, hold on.
Wait a minute, that was from Visegrad 24, right?
What? Are you? Wait a minute. Is that for real? Wait a minute. Go to their page real quick because that's huge if that's happened.
Hang on. Visegrad.
No way.
Wait, hang on. I misspelled
What?
it.
They suspended. It's right there, man. Look. It's right there. They suspended
What the
Visegrad
hell?
24. What the hell?
Why did they suspend
You're
them?
joking. Wait a minute. Hold on. I got to go to Twitter and like look at that real quick. That is huge. Why the hell did they suspend them? What the hell? They have suspended them from the looks of it.
Why? Is there
Man,
been an
that's messed
explanation?
up. I don't see an explanation. It seems to have just happened just a short while ago.
19
That is
minutes ago.
crazy. Man, they were super reliable too. They didn't put out propaganda. Like they just put out straight facts.
I want to get the platform to promote free speech, and then bans accounts for no reason. Like, what the hell was the point of that? This was one of the biggest news accounts on Twitter. It was a very reliable one. We have used Visegrad 24 loads on this channel to cover news. They put out a lot of reliable stuff, especially things that we can't get picture and video evidence on, and they just got suspended off of Twitter just about 18 minutes ago, from what we can tell. That is absolutely insane. And you know, it really, man, it's just so interesting because I remember someone new, I forgot their name, but someone new took over Twitter recently, right? And they said that there was going to be a free speech platform.
Yeah, I will give credit here for a minute. They've made mistakes like this in the past, and they'll reverse it maybe like a day later after they realize they've screwed up. It could have been maybe an automated system got them or something like that, hopefully. Because Visegrad 24, like I've vet the Twitter sources very carefully because Twitter has a lot of misinformation on it. But Visegrad always put out solid content, and they also were one of the main people reporting and showing footage of things happening in Europe and also Ukraine. So you know they had 1 million followers. That's a massive account. Just to get suspended for some like unknown rule violation like that. So that's wild.
That is bizarre. I don't even have an idea of how in the world that could happen. But anyways, great to know. That's going to be news for us going forward, and we'll have to hopefully see that they return because they were a very big part of a lot of people's news gathering out there, really across the entirety of the internet. But meanwhile, 10,000 NATO service members will be stationed at the Mihail Kogalniceanu air base, and from what we know, it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Let me see what we can see right here. So we can already see that there was a small military stationing at the airport. And let me see if we can find what was here. So these are Romanian MiG-21s that we're seeing out on the tarmac in the satellite picture. We can also see the international airport itself. We can also see a, let's see here, that might be a, I don't know whose country's C-130 that would be. That's not an American one, that I do know for sure. And we can also see some FA-18 Hornets right here as well. That's actually really interesting. I don't really know a lot of countries that fly the FA-18 Hornet. I know Switzerland does, but they certainly wouldn't be at this airfield. We can also see some of the new hangars that were already being built a little bit earlier, and also ground being broken in other areas, and then more Romanian MiG-21s. But beyond that, really interesting to know that they are going to be building out the space further and further and making it a massive NATO airfield, and once again making sure that NATO will be able to power project not only into the Black Sea but also counter any Russian threats coming in the future, possibly to the rest of the alliance. But moving on from that little bit of news, we do have to move on into something that I did not put down tonight or at all. I didn't even cover this earlier in the day because I just don't really have a lot of care or concern for the specific group that did this today, to be quite honest. And I don't really find what they say to have a lot of merit. But the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has stated that they are putting arrest warrants out for Shoigu and Gerasimov over the past 24 hours. And a lot of people are wondering, who's going to get to him first? The ICC, which has never been able to really arrest anyone in the entire history of the war, or Putin? Will he purge them before the ICC can get him? And some people are saying they will escape punishment. Others are saying that Putin will get him. Not for the ICC, but just for himself. And then some other people are unsure, and then some people said that the ICC will eventually arrest him. But Matthew, what were people really thinking? Were they thinking that they would get away scot-free, or do you think that they're not going to get away scot-free and Putin's going to get them? And what do you think as well?
So it looks like the poll is pretty evenly split between Putin eliminating them with 37%, or both of them escaping punishment altogether and being protected from any sort of elimination, while 11% said no, the ICC will eventually catch up to them and arrest them. And on the third option there, the one I just mentioned, the ICC arresting them, I would go ahead and rule that out right now. That'll probably never happen because the ICC does not have any enforcement powers. And also Shoigu and Gerasimov are probably never going to leave Russia unless they leave probably, not so full of blood anymore, to put it lightly. So I would say, honestly, Putin's probably not going to eliminate them now that they have arrest warrants out, because there's really no fear of them leaving Russia. Because if they did, they would be technically going into ICC jurisdiction. And also, even if they didn't have an arrest warrant out for them, nobody's going to take either Shoigu or Gerasimov into their country. That's simply not going to happen. And also, Putin would never let them leave. So I'm with the 38%, honestly. I think they're going to both escape punishment. They may be taken out by Putin later, maybe, but not right now in the short term. So I'm with the 38%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I personally don't think I think that they will escape punishment, to be entirely honest. The ICC is a useless organization, and some people are going to be like, man, that sounds harsh. It's true. I mean, like, really. The ICC has no enforceable power. It's not like they're like the world police or anything, and they can just show up anywhere and arrest anyone. They rely on the will of nations. And not only that, they have done things in the past that have really been goofy. I mean, goofy to the point that the United States is sanctioned, I believe, the ICC, if I'm correct, Matthew.
And say it one more time.
The United States sanctioned the ICC?
Yeah, they sanctioned the ICC over the arrest warrants for the Israeli officials.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's leading me to believe no one gives a damn about the ICC anymore, because that move, when they started to put out arrest warrants for the Israeli officials, was something that was not taken that well by a good bit of people. I'm not talking about the public opinion, I'm talking about on the governmental level. It was not taken that well when they started to issue arrest warrants for that, considering that situation is very fragile and there's a load of gray area. I mean, there's an insane load of gray area to the point that you really can't go like you would with Russia and Ukraine, where it's an actual conventional war and it's not an asymmetrical war. Oh, these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. The conflict going on in Israel is one that has a lot of nuance area to it. And while, yes, I will admit that there's a lot of civilian casualties, unlike the war in Ukraine, where those could easily be avoided, things are in a lot bigger of a gray area in that area to start just claiming that people are openly criminals and deserve to be arrested, or putting out arrest warrants for the leaders of those nations. And considering that the United States put sanctions on the ICC, that shows how much of a joke they really are. No one really takes them seriously at this point, because neither the Chinese, the Russians, or America do, and really the two most important ones that count is China and the United States, and if they don't take them seriously, they're a joke. And so, going off of that, I would have to say the ICC isn't going to do anything to them, but they're not going to leave Russia either, just like Matthew was saying, because they have warrants out for them now, and maybe a country would respect that and arrest them and then hand them over to the ICC, but I don't think they'll ever leave Russia in the first place. And I don't really think they're going to get purged either. I think Putin is going to allow them to just go into obscurity for the large part and just leave them alone instead of killing them off like he usually would with most others. Because Shoigu was so high up that his death would be very noticeable. His fame and notoriety, at least within Russia, isn't really going to die because he was the Minister of Defense for 12 years. He wasn't a minor member of the Russian government, and he wasn't kind of like a quietly talked about oligarch that some people knew about but didn't really know about. This guy was the guy. He was really the left-hand man of Putin. So if he got assassinated in some way, shape, or form, people would probably notice that a lot more than others being purged. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can, in my opinion. But before we move on back into Ukraine, we actually have a lot of questions to talk about, and a load of them. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so first up for our first Super Chat segment, we have our first one, which is a very generous $200 donation from Toadman the First. And that is massive support, of course, and huge shout out to Toadman for always supporting the channel bigly, and we appreciate it very much. He says, LSA, I am back. He said, also, I will comment on my super chat with the coordinates of the ammo dump that you could not geolocate with the video you posted earlier in the day, and LSA all the way. And also, Toadman, if you put those in, I might have missed them because I didn't see them come in. If you could maybe do that one more time, we can maybe take a peek and see where that was. But thank you very much for the support.
And thank you for the massive support, Toadman the First. And welcome back, LSA, baby! Put an LSA in the chat if you're happy for Toadman the First to return. And also, thank you so much for wanting to send the coordinates. I didn't see them either, so if you could resend them, we will take a look at it. But still, thank you so much once again for that unbelievable support and being a massive part of the Lee Spring Army and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and make it a reality for us to run this thing every single day of the week. It is unbelievable that folks like you, Toadman the First, enjoy this channel so much that you'll throw in massive support like that. And of course, every bit of support is greatly appreciated. But support like that is unbelievable in the amount it helps us to be able to do things behind the scenes and help this channel to keep on running. You're one of the very few that actually supports this channel directly. It is an ad-free, sponsor-free stream. Always has been, always will be. And the only way that we make these streams possible on this channel is through viewer support like yours, Toadman the First. And you help us to be able to get on air every single night and say, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and to keep this channel running and keep the news going out to all of y'all. And so thank you greatly once again for that incredible support. And Matthew, have we gotten the coordinates yet for that ammo depot?
We have, and also I reposted them in the chat so you can see them.
And so let's see here. Oh, there we go. Oh, hello there. All right, so
We got the coordinates. Let's go.
man, let me see here. Let me let the chat move up a little bit more. Come on, chat, move up a little bit. Come on, man. Okay, so there we go. So now let me copy it. Boop. And then let me paste it up in here. Boop. Oh, hello there. Would you look at that? Where was this?
Look at that.
Oh, it was
That's
right
top
up.
level geolocation.
Man, this place looked like a literal dump. Like, it wasn't just an ammo dump. It was a dump. Like, damn. This place was, like, hardly used. Like, I think this place was an abandoned ammo dump from Soviet times, and the Russians tried to find, like they always do, a place to store ammo, and considering that this was so far away from the front, they just went, the abandoned ammo storage, it'll work. And then they just started dumping it off in there, because this place looks terrible even before the explosion. I mean, really bad. Look at that.
It looks abandoned.
It really does. I mean, that is whack. But we did see it blow up. I mean, we do have confirmation and proof. This was the place that was blowing up. And, you know, we even have the satellite proof of the explosions and flames still coming from the ammunition dump that did confirm that that was it. And that is wildly close to the actual town. I mean, how far away is that at the maximum? So about a kilometer away, or about 3,000 feet. So that is not far at all, dude. That explosion was literally happening pretty much in the city, and that's why they shut down all of the highways heading into Olkovatka and out of Olkovatka, because the explosion was pretty much on the highways at that point. That is nuts. Crazy, even. And I gotta thank you so much, Toadman the First, for that unbelievable, incredible support. And not only that, finally showing us where in the world this was, because that's why I wasn't able to geolocate it earlier, because it literally looks like an old Soviet dump. Because it really just does. I mean, it's bad. I mean, I'm looking at it. There's like trees growing around this building here. And I mean, over here, you can see that Chris's mom apparently sat down. I mean, it looks terrible.
Oh.
I mean, it's horrendous looking. I mean, bad. Terrible. But still, thank you for that unbelievable support, Toadman the First. I thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for being a long-time LSA member. LSA all the way, and thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, and not only that, helping us out with our coverage to make sure that we know where that ammo dump really was. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one, our second one here, goes to Kimberly Brokaw, who's also a channel legend, and puts in a $100 donation. Also, extremely generous support, and huge shout out to Kimberly for the support. She said, keeping up the good work, and take one from the chat.
And I gotta say, thank you for the massive support, Kimberly, and thank you so much for enjoying us keeping up the good work. We try and keep it up as best we can, and these days, it just seems as though the channel is just going full steam nowadays, not only in the amount of work we're putting in, but the amount of people who are watching this channel. It's been absolutely nuts. I don't know if y'all saw this, but on, I think it was Sunday, and let me check. Yes. It was on a Sunday. We put out a video that has gotten 350,000 views. And then the video we put out yesterday got 263,000 views. And right now, the video we put out today, 7 hours and 45 minutes ago, has already gotten 230,000 views. I mean, it's an absolutely insane time on the channel. It is viewership that is truly unprecedented on a scale that we could have never even imagined before. I mean, it like Matthew and me have been absolutely blown away with how much this channel has been doing recently. And not only that, how these live streams have been going. These live streams, no joke, are in the top 100 in America every single day when they're going live. We are somewhere in the top 100. And not only that, all of our live streams now are getting over 100,000 views on average. Although there's a few that will get like 80 to 90,000. Most of them are getting over 100,000 views, which is something that we still can't believe as well. And it's crazy. We don't know what is getting everyone in here now, because for the longest time we got maybe the best viewership on a video was like 60,000 views, and back in the day we absolutely were ecstatic if we got 90,000 views, and now we're getting 250,000 views on every single video we put out a day. It's unbelievable, and I gotta thank everyone so much for appreciating our work and enjoying it so much that it's really catching on like wildfire now, and people from all over are watching, because y'all give us the inspiration to continue to do this day by day. It's unbelievable. And I got to thank you so much once again, Kimberly Brokaw, for being a channel legend. Having been here with us before this channel blew up, well, actually, the channel has blown up twice now. It blew up in a big way the first time, and now it's blowing up in an unbelievable way a second time. But I got to thank you so much for your unbelievable, amazing support and helping this channel to keep on running, and always being here and always throwing in kind words of support in the live chat. I see every single one of y'all every single night when y'all are in the live chat. I see everything y'all say. And I gotta say, it's always wonderful to know that we always have your name in the live chat, and always saying things like long live the LSA, we're doing great work, keep it up, all that kind of stuff. We do see it and we do read it. And I gotta say a massive thanks to you, Kimberly Brokaw, and we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. And so, Matthew, what live chat do we have sponsored by none other than Kimberly Brokaw?
All right, so that live chat question here is going to go to Kid Rock. He's back once again. He said, what's up with Ukraine's Neptune missiles? And do they have a big stockpile or only a few? And how do they size up against the Western supplied missiles?
So the Neptune anti-ship missile, which we have right here, is actually considerably large. It's a pretty big missile. The thing with it, though, is that they don't really have a insanely large amount of these missiles, but they do have a lot of them. The problem is that the reason why Ukraine built these missiles was because they believed that in a war with Russia, these missiles would be able to protect Odessa, Mykolaiv, and Kherson from possible Russian naval attacks by giving them a bit of a standoff distance as of a sort. But the problem is that as the war has gone on, the Russian Navy has never entered range to be able to be fired on by the Neptune missiles. The only time that ever happened in the war was when they sank the Moskva, meaning that only 2 Neptune missiles have ever been fired in actual combat at their intended target, which would be a surface vessel. Going off of that, there really isn't a lot of room for these missiles to be used in their normal function, which would be in an anti-ship role. And also, here's a transport for the Neptune anti-ship missiles right there. That's what they look like when they're being transported around. But let me see if I can get y'all the actual launch vehicle. Here we go. Here's a launch vehicle firing a Neptune, just to give you the scale of how big these things really are compared to their launching vehicle. But beyond that, these missiles are never going to be used against their intended target, which are vessels. The Ukrainian naval drones have really taken them over in that role and are a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient. So what the Ukrainians are starting to do with the Neptunes now is that they're converting them into ground-to-ground missiles, meaning that they can be fired from one point, the launch vehicle, and towards the second point, their target on the ground. That's really the best way that they can use these missiles. I don't know if they have a high yield warhead. Let's see if they do. So the warhead weight is about 330 pounds. So this thing is a bit of a lighter hitter as far as missiles go, but it does have, from what we understand, a pretty decent range. It can fire up to about 190 miles away. So that thing can get a little bit of distance on it, but still the warhead isn't really that big. And considering that's being modified for a ground-to-ground role, it is not going to be as effective as purpose-built ground-to-ground missiles like the ATACMS or, for example, the Scalp-EG, which is an air-to-ground missile, or anything similar along those lines. But still, That is why we're starting to see that the Ukrainians are using Neptunes a little bit more against ground targets, is because there's really no chance of them being able to fire these things at the Russian Navy any longer. They just can't. And they never will be able to, because most of the Russian Navy has been destroyed at this point. So why keep missiles in a role that they'll never be used in? The Ukrainians believe that it would be a lot better to convert them and use them in actual ways that would matter, so that way they can try and get the most out of the missiles. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Great question, Kid Rock. And thank you so much once again for the support, Kimberly Brokaw, and helping this channel to keep on running and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving into the Ukraine war news.
All right, and the third and last one of the segment goes to none other than BC Skyman. He's a channel legend, and he put in an $80 donation combined in super stickers. And huge shout out BC for that support as always. And he did not leave a comment, but he did leave that super sticker. And this time it was a YouTube creature, the pair I think it is, riding a firework out into the distance. And it looks like it, unfortunately, went kaboom. So I think the fellow might have gone away. But anyways, maybe one day Putin might be doing that little routine there on the firework. But you never know. But thank you very much, BC, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Man, rest in pieces. But beyond that, thank you for the massive support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. Another channel legend. An absolute channel legend. An old guard through and through. And I gotta say that it is absolutely wonderful to have you here with us tonight. I thank you so much for being here. You're no bot. And I don't know why someone said that you were a bot at the beginning of the stream. I saw that, and I took great offense to that, although I didn't bring
You're
anything.
a bot.
Say what?
I said they're a bot. The person that said that, I just out of the blue like that. BC Skyman's a bot. It's like, no, he's not. He's like doing tremendous work for Ukraine. It's like, how's he a bot?
Is that person gone? By the way, I'm just wondering. Were they timed out, or are they completely gone?
They got a 24-hour timeout, a very rare one.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, that's kind of fitting for that, because when I saw that, I was like, how the hell can you say that BC Skyman, an absolute channel legend? We've said that a million times on air. How in the world can you call BC Skyman a bot? That is the one person I know for sure is not a bot, like without a shadow of a doubt. But I took personal offense for that, BC Skyman, just so that way you know. I didn't say anything about it then, but I saw that. I was like, what the hell? How dare someone say that? But beyond that, I got to say thank you so much for being an old guard and a channel legend. You've been here forever. You've been supporting this channel, saying kind things, and not only that, providing massive support for Ukraine. I hope that you finally received my medical bandages. They were supposed to be there by, I think, this last Saturday. And so I think that they should have been there by now. So let me know if you got them, BC Scamming, because I'm hoping you did.
So BC said earlier, he said that he doesn't see them there at his place just yet. So I was going to tell you after the stream to check out the tracking, because apparently it might be running late or something like that, but it's apparently not there yet.
Got you. Hopefully it is there, because it should have been there by this Saturday. So I'll be checking on that hopefully here soon and trying to figure out what happened to the package. It should have made it there by now. It should have, and it will be really late if it hasn't. So hopefully that doesn't end up being an issue, or where it shows up after y'all get there, because that has been something that we've run into with merch sales, is that sometimes the post office will just get something to you like a month after you mailed it to someone. Like people have said, hey, I didn't get a shirt. We'll remail them a shirt, and the second one will get there within 3 days, and then 3 weeks later, the original one that they ordered then shows up as well. And it's like, well, dang. But still, with that, I hope it does make it there. I'll be checking on it and seeing what happened to it, so hopefully we can ensure that it gets there. But still, thank you for the unbelievable support, BC Scamming, and thank you as well to Yuri, who's going to be taking all of those medical bandages, the LSA flag, and the LSA combat patches, which was in my box of medical bandages, hopefully, to Ukraine. So that way we can not only help out Ukraine, but see that the Lee Spring Army is over there as well, in full form with a flag patch and everything. And so with that, thank you so much once again for that incredible support, BC Scamming, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are now going to be moving on out of this question segment and down on into the area of Sevastopol, because we were able to see that there was video proof of something pretty wild happening. And ATACMS was shot down. We were able to confirm this over a beach near the city of Sevastopol, and from what we can tell, it doesn't look like it went that well when they tried to shoot it down, because debris ended up landing everywhere, including on the beachgoers. Now, From what I know, the specific video footage is not that graphic, but it does show debris that, from what we've been told, ended up killing 3 people, although we don't see that on film. But here's the clip. So right at this moment, the attackers has been shot down above the beach. You can now see pieces of debris landing out in the ocean around them. And here comes pieces of the debris landing out here on land as people go running from the beach in all directions. Now, it really brings the question, why in the hell would the Russians even allow people on a beach in the middle of a war zone?
Also, why would the Russians go to the beach in the middle of a war like this? That's kind of goofy on its own. But I guess I can answer my own question right there. They're not exactly that bright because we've seen some pretty stupid activity coming out of these people. The mere fact they're going to Crimea at all, like the entire area of Crimea, which is Ukraine's, and acting like it's perfectly normal, you have to be a little bit off to do that.
You have to be pretty stupid. You really do. And it's so stupid how that whole thing went. The fact that Russians were at the beach, the fact that the Russians actually had an air defense system off screen that you couldn't see. I believe it's actually up on one of these bluffs right about here where these buildings are. It's somewhere like right here, I believe, and it overlooks this beach because this is the beach in particular where that attackers was shot down. So it looked like it was targeting something inside the port of Sevastopol, and then the debris comes raining down on these people and ends up wounding and killing them. The Russians should know, either let's mitigate civilian casualties by not shooting it down and letting it hit its target instead of, possibly killing civilians, or let's tell the civilians not to be here because it's a war zone. And it was a really idiotic thing all around. I can't really, I'll be entirely honest. Usually I would say there's sympathy for civilian casualties. It's really hard for me to find sympathy for these civilian casualties because the entire thing was stupidity on everyone's end. Stupidity on the citizens' end because they thought it would be a good idea to go swimming in a war zone, and then stupidity on the Russian government's end because they wouldn't tell these people not to go there in the middle of a war zone. So I can't really feel a lot of sympathy for this one, but still, that was pretty dumb all around. But moving on out of Sevastopol and on up a little bit further on and into the area of Kyiv, we were also able to see that apparently there was a little interesting clip that came out up here. But before we get to that, NATO officials have confirmed that Russian saboteurs set fire to a Berlin defense facility. We actually heard about that fire a while ago, but they now were able to confirm that it was Russian sabotage. And some people are wondering, is this an act of war? And some people are saying that, yes, it's an act of war. Retaliate. Others are saying that, no, it's not an act of war. Others are saying that it's an act of war, but it's okay. Let it go. And others are a little bit unsure. But Matthew, what are people saying? And what are people thinking about that?
So on this question, the overwhelming majority, about 66%, said this is indeed an act of war and the West should retaliate for it, while about 10% or 11% said it is an act of war, but it's fine, and 12% said no, it's simply not an act of war. And on this one, I will say, this is not the first time this has happened. This is one of the first officially confirmed incidences of Russian sabotage, but I can almost guarantee you that this is not nearly the first. For some reason, though, NATO felt it necessary to come out and tell everybody that it was indeed a Russian sabotage event. They could have kept that quiet like they've probably done in the past, but this time they purposely came out and told everybody about it. And in my opinion, this is probably not an act of war because the sabotage is a little bit tricky. It's a little bit of a gray area because you really can't necessarily say the people were sent by Putin himself. They may be Russian, they may be saboteurs, but it's hard to say exactly who ordered it or who did it without interrogating them and getting the exact answer. And I'm pretty sure that nobody's going to actually say, I was sent by Putin. So we're kind of left in a bit of a gray zone as to whether or not it was independent Russian saboteurs or it was government sponsored. So I'm going to say it's probably not an act of war. It's getting pretty damn close, but it's not quite there just yet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say this is not an act of war. It's not okay either. I do believe a diplomatic incident should be made out of this, but I don't believe that it is an act of war to the point we should retaliate and begin a full-blown conventional war. We do have people inside of Russia right now who are actively conducting sabotage and espionage against the Russian Federation that are either working for the CIA or some other form of a Western intelligence institute. And the fact that the Russians could really make the same argument and begin a war with the West on that, very rarely do I say that on a diplomatic level things are supposed to be fair. But with this, there has to be a little bit of an understanding that things like espionage and sabotage can happen, and it's not good, and we should make sure to greatly discourage the Russians from having something like that happen. But I don't believe that that's a hill to die on, in my real opinion. So that's what I would have to say. It's, of course, something to make an incident out of, but not a hill to die on. That would be my best take on that situation at the moment. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And now it's time for us to get to Kyiv and talk about that air defense montage that we were able to get. This was a very interesting one because it showed multiple different weapons, multiple different anti-aircraft guns, intercepting Shahed drones. Check it out. Oh, yeah. Man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they got it.
Mighty fine tonight.
Yeah, блядь!
Man, is this Iraq in the mid 2000s? You know? Oh, that's nice.
Правіше! Yeah!
Man, the classic goods gun.
Yeah! Yeah, сука!
And that's the end of the clip, but just showing a couple of the anti-aircraft guns at work. Pretty cool footage, I'm not going to lie, and so that's why I had to show it to y'all. Moving on from that and into the location unknowns, we also got an interesting little bit of news that the shell famine has been overcome. The Ukrainians are no longer hungry for shells. Now they're just hungry for victory, according to the statements that were made today by the armed forces of Ukraine, which is absolutely wonderful to hear. Meanwhile, we also got to see a BTR-4 crossing a river. Look at that thing. It's just swimming. Look at it like a little puppy. Look at it. It's climbing out of the river.
Man, that thing just doesn't look like it's made for that. Like, I've never been able to really understand how these things actually float. I get it's buoyant and stuff, enough to be able to stay above the water, but it looks like it should not be able to be floating. Like, it's too heavy, too bulky. It's solid metal. It's like, it's just crazy how that thing floats.
But nevertheless, Matthew, it do. And it be swimming.
It's floating, man. Look at it. It's treading the water.
Man, that thing be just treading water like a little baby puppy, man. It'd be getting out going... It's like, good boy. But anyways, moving on from that and on to our next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian Boltana in action. Check out this clip. And the copyright hits hard, but the Boltana hits harder. That thing be on the road. That thing be pulling up.
Man, he stood right in front of that gun barrel.
Man, now they're elevating the gun, loading it. They're getting ready to fire. I mean, action. It's happening. You want action? It's right here. When you see them loading the gun for the third time in this montage, I think they have more shells in there than they have gun. But we can now see them getting ready to fire. And what? Bang! And there we go. It fired. Very nice. And there goes the shell.
That one had such smooth recoil on it too. It wasn't violent. It was just nice. Boof.
Man, it's just a slight push. A little push. Well, that's the end of that clip. But pretty cool to see the Bodanas in action. But those Russians, they are getting pounded up there on their tiny post by the Bodanas. Oh!
Oh dear, this is terrible. Absolutely terrible. 6 Bombcats, that's tremendous. But Enforcer, in a minute, we're going to have to take a look at yesterday's because it was even bigger than that.
No way. No way.
That was
1,100.
bigger.
Man, I can't believe you. 1,180 Russian troops were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 18 APCs, 58 vehicles, supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 35 artillery systems, 31 drones, 1 cruise missile, and 6 Bobcat skid steers. But we gotta get more. If they suspend Kyiv Independent, I'm gonna be mad. So here we go. Now let me scroll down through everything the Kyiv Independent puts out. A reliable news organization if I've ever seen one. Although their casualty reports can sometimes be a little skewed. But still. Oh my goodness!
Man, 20 Bobcats, Misty says. Plus 20 special equipment ranks the second highest after plus 21 on 6/11/24. I'm telling you what, this is a historic event, second best in history. I love to see it. And this was yesterday. This was Monday. Ukraine was smashing on a Monday because they were mad. They had to show back up to work, and they were smashing.
Man, they went, damn it, and then just started blowing up Bobcats. But 1,300 Russian troops were wounded and killed on Monday, along with 15 APCs, 56 supply trucks, 12 main battle tanks, 51 artillery pieces, 27 drones, 2 cruise missiles, and 20 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, it was an incredibly impressive day, and we are so happy to see that the Ukrainian forces were able to inflict such high casualties and make sure to keep the Russians at bay, and not only that, push the Russians back out of the Vovchansk area. And with that, it is now time for us to move on and into the area past Vovchansk and into the area around Kislivka, because we got to see that the SBU Alpha group destroyed some golf carts and cars. They were really getting the full smorgasbord today. Okay, I thought that was a drone for a second, but apparently that's some kind of crappy song. But we can see the drone coming down on this truck. Blitz! Oh, and it's over for them. Oh, and we can see it burning down there, too.
Whoosh.
It burns! But we can see another drone hitting another
The
truck.
worms!
The worms! The worms! Dude, man, when the
Man,
Russians...
I think Putin might have that syndrome. You know, the worms, he might have a little bit of that because he's got that little thing where he has to stay like 20 feet away from people, hide in a closet and stuff like that. It could be the worms! The worms! Or it could be the devil. The devil could be in there too.
One second, man. I'm going to put the worms from English to Russian. Let's see if we can get a translation on that. Why is it not translated?
Hey, and Visegrad 24 is unbanned. Let's go! They're back again.
Let's go, baby! I'm so happy to see that. Oh my goodness. I was really scared. I was panicking even. But let's see here. As they continue to hit these trucks, I can't get a translation on Google Translate for... Oh, here we go. I mean, the worms in Russian is just chervi. Chervi! Chervi! So you just say that, that's the worms in Russian. It doesn't have the same kind of hit. It doesn't hit right. You know what I mean?
Nah, it doesn't hit the same.
Man, I think Putin just saying the worms with a Russian accent would be better than saying chervi. But the worms,
You see, so if you had half the intelligence that Putin has, you'd understand that the worms were put there by Putin because Putin controls all, you know. Putin's the chess master that goes to North Korea to try to get more weapons and ends up pissing off the South Koreans, and they're actually going to send weapons to their adversary. It's a grand strategy. You have to understand, good child, understand.
Most people in the world are playing chess. Meanwhile, Putin is playing two-dimensional checkers. but beyond that, moving on down into the area of the Kremena forest, we were able to see that a Russian IFV hit a landmine. Look at it go. It's just rolling. It's kind of a vibe, you know? Oh! And it's gone. There goes the APC. And wait, we've seen this before. This is a duplicate. Get the hell out of here. What the hell is this? Okay, we're deleting that one. And moving on to this BMP2 that was cooking. Wait, let him cook. Not that song, though. That song was garbage. You can see the drone lining up to the back of the BMP and going right in the rear cargo door, or the rear infantry door, and blowing up. When you see the Russians put a pirate flag on their BMP, Yarr! Yo ho ho, and a bottle of blow. I mean, rum or whatever, you know what I mean? But we can see the BMP continuing to burn. Yarr, that be some fine Peruvian blow. But we can see the BMP2 roasting, toasting. Really, really cooking on all sides. That ain't no braised beef. That is a well done, congratulations beef. Yar, they be getting their shit kicked in, yar. But we see it continuing to roast, continuing to toast. Toaster strudel. With no icing. But that's the end of that clip. Beautiful to see from the 45th Brigade. And with that, we're now going to be moving on out of the area of Kremenna and on down into the area of Avdiivka, where we got to see that a Pantsir system was destroyed down here as well. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? This thing got smacked hard. I don't know what really, like, how close to HIMARS impact was, but it was so strong, it appears to have completely blasted some of the SAM tubes out of their holding racks on the side of the turret, which suggests that the explosion was incredibly strong. And also, by the way, if y'all ever want to give credit to anything to founding the Leaf Spring Army, it's actually the Pantsir, because it was the Leaf Springs on the back of the Pantsir that birthed the Leaf Spring Army. No joke. If y'all want to go back and look at the history, y'all can, but that's where the Leaf Spring Army comes from. It's from the suspension of a Pantsir S1. But moving on from that and into the area of Novobahmukivka, we got to see an unsuccessful attack by the Russians. Check it out. Oh, and that tank is gone immediately.
We're back. Did we get screwed over? Did the stream end?
No, we did not end. We are still live.
Oh, we're getting screwed with bad.
Hello?
I think we're back.
Hello? Can you hear me? I hear you.
Yes, I think. Are we still? We're still live. I can't believe
live.
it. The worms.
What
the worms.
The worms. The video's no longer available. Anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see a T-90M destroyed at nighttime. Check it out. There it is.
Man, somehow we shed almost 1,000 viewers from that lag. That's terrible.
That is terrible, man. Terrible. Actually, we only shed like 400. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Hell, we don't run the show just for views. We run it for the people. Put an LSA in the chat. I don't know why in the world my voice was cracking so hard right there. It wasn't supposed to sound like that. But anyways, we can see the drones coming in and getting that T-90. Even in the middle of a warehouse, that thing ain't safe. And GW North said, that's a DDoS. You know it is. I mean, we got the Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians, and some weird guy in Minnesota after us right now. I mean, we got everyone in the world going for us. You know someone's got to be DDoSing us at some point in the night. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Also, by the way, Visegrad24 is indeed back, but for some reason they only have 467 subscribers or followers now for some odd reason. But it's the real Visegrad, but something's not quite right. So if I was them, I'd be panicking right now.
Man, Anakin, start panicking. I don't have a planikin. But anyways, that is a little concerning. But moving on from that little bit of news with the T-90 getting destroyed there by the Ukrainians, we also got to see a couple of Bradleys on the move in the 47th Magura. All right, and we're going to be muting that, but we can see the Bradleys rolling around in the fields. Frank Finkenstedt said, don't take drugs and stream. I'd agree. That's something that the hot dog man ought to take a learn into.
Yeah, you're on the wrong stream, bud.
Yeah, go over to the
one.
other one. Like, go over to the other one with 30 viewers and go over there. But man,
bro came in thinking he was on the hot dog man stream. Man, you landed in the real news category here, not that fake crap. Like you missed. You were one door over, and you got the guy you're looking for.
Yeah, literally just one Grim Reaper door with blood stains over, and it would have been him. But you had to come to our door. Why? Why did you do that? Like, but anyways, moving on from that and into the area of Stara Mikhailivka, we got to see that the 501st put some Russians under. Check this out. And I gotta tell you, that beat's putting my brain cells under. But we can see the Russians moving around right here. And of course, the Ukrainians spotting them and getting in the heat. I don't know what's up with the lag tonight, y'all. Usually our streams are pretty lag-free these days, but it looks as though we're going to be getting lagged all night. Sorry about that in advance.
Also, if you want to counteract the effect of the lag, smash that like button as hard as you can to let the DDoSers and bots know that you said screw them.
Mm-hmm. And hit that subscribe button because we only 20 subscribers away from 231,000. hit that subscribe button. But we can see the Russians being put under that rubble. Barney rubble. Anyways, you can see the rubble has consumed them. And I don't think they're going to be getting out. Rest in pieces. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next bit of news, further on down from Staromykhalivka and down in the area Yekharivka, we got to see that the BMP-3 was blown up down here. Bloop. Oh, dang. Oh, my God, dude. I did not expect that. I actually didn't watch the whole clip, but that thing went nuclear. Look at this. Dang.
Jaga jaga. That's fire. That's real fire right there.
Fire and fury. But moving on from that and out of that area of the front, it's now time for us to move all the way down to Kherson, where we got the fun clip of the Russians getting their boat hit at night in the middle of the river. It was a very interesting clip, but here it is. Bled, there's a drum, Bled. Just keep the boat going, Bled. And they just cruising in the darkness. But all of a sudden, there's about to be some light. They just keep going. But here it comes. Any second now. Oh!
Whoa!
Oh! Oh my
Man.
lord, dude! Dude, what the hell? Did you see the dude? These guys got like a running start. I don't even know where the other side of the boat is. Like if it's like 50 feet long. But look at these two guys, dude. They were like running like Scooby-Doo characters, like 20 miles per hour off the boat. Watch. It's like, where the hell did they come from? Like, how did they get up that much speed
Really?
from one side of the boat to the next?
Man, these Russian cruise excursions are getting wild.
Dude, I'm telling you what, they're getting that whole Walt Disney World's Pirate of the Caribbean experience for free out here.
Arrgh, pirate, this fire is feeling realistic today, Leon.
Yar, yo, and a bottle of antiseptic for your wounds. Yar. But anyways, let's watch that again, dude, because it was all quiet and everything, and then just boosh.
Oh,
What the hell?
man, there was like a one of those Wilhelm screams in the background too. Ah! It's like, damn.
Dude, why in the world did all the lids pop open in front of this guy as soon as the boat blew up? Watch, dude, look. Where the hell did why in the world is the machine gun like flipped open? Yeah. And why in the world is the ammo can now popping all the way open too? Like everything just popped open all at the same time when that thing blew up. Watch. And then
Man, these roaches, they hate the light, man. The roaches just can't stand it when you turn on the lights.
Man, I'm telling you what. and then these two guys, like, okay, it's a rib pretty much, y'all. So maybe at best it's like 6 feet wide. But these guys jumped off the side of the boat like they literally got like a 50-foot running start. Like they were going full speed off the side of the boat. Look at this. And then that guy also, by the way, a huge shout out to this guy who apparently tripped on the full send off the boat, and it looks like he went under the boat. Watch. Yeah, he went under the boat, but the other guy, he cleared the boat, and he went all the way out into the river. Fun times, but...
That one dude almost jumped into the fire right there. Like, he was like 2 feet away from like jumping and flying right into it when he jumped off. Look at him.
Oh my lord. Oh my goodness. This is probably one of the most chaotic videos I've seen of a boat on the Dnipro River ever. It's just all silent, and then boosh, and then you just see two guys go flying off the boat immediately, and then this guy follows. I mean, this whole thing was chaos. It really was. But that's the end of that clip right there, showing y'all a little bit of what's going on down the Dnipro River. And now, without further ado, it's time for us to make it up to Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 853 of The Wire. And it looks as though we got one. Wait a minute.
Hey,
we have two
up.
of them. We have two of them. How long is this one? This one's pretty good. Hey, we'll watch this one. Also, Zelensky is really short. But anyways, let's see here. Boom! There we go. And here's the speech.
Дорогі українці і українки, сьогодні день, заради якого ми всі працювали довго і дуже наполегливо. Вся команда України. Сьогодні офіційне, фактичне, реальне відкриття переговорів про вступ України в Євросоюз. І наша українська делегація, представники Верховної Ради України, уряду, Офісу, вже провели першу міжурядову конференцію України та Євросоюзу. І до сьогодні ми були державою, яка здобула статус кандидата на вступ, але повної впевненості ще не могло бути, чи реалізуємо цей статус. А від сьогодні це вже точно впевненість. Україна неодмінно буде повноправним членом Євросоюзу. Питання тепер в технічній роботі України з Євросоюзом, в адаптації нашої системи до ЄС і в політичній волі Європи. Зробити європейський проєкт дійсно довершеним. Це можливо тільки з Україною у складі об'єднаної Європи, Європи цінностей, Європи без розколів, ідеологічних стін та сірих зон, Європи миру, справжнього миру. І я дякую усім, хто підтримує Україну на цьому шляху, хто допомагає і хто заради України б'ється за наш спільний український дім, за нашу державу саме так, як за свій власний. Коли на 5-й день повномасштабної війни ми разом підписали заявку на вступ в Євросоюз, багато хто казав, що це не більше, ніж мрія. Але ми реалізували цю мрію. Ми вибили це, переконали, зняли кожен із сумнівів, які були. У червні 22-го кандидатство України було схвалено, попри протидію. У грудні 23-го лідери Європи підтримали політичне рішення щодо перемовин з Україною. Сьогодні перемовини стартують. Між цими кроками тисячі зустрічей, тисячі дзвінків, умови, які Україна повністю виконала, закони, які були прийняті та запрацювали. А найголовніше – це рішучість наших людей, нашого народу. Рішучість, яка спрацювала, яка не підвела Україну і всю Європу. І яка доводить, що всі українці разом, всі європейці разом здатні реалізувати навіть найбільші мрії, здатні перемагати.
Міжурядовій конференції, формат, який сьогодні почався, це робота між нашою державою та представниками усіх держав ЄС. Фактично над частинами майбутнього договору про вступ України. Згідно із затвердженою переговорною рамкою, ми пройдемо всіма розділами наших відносин і по кожному маємо дійти згоди. Обов'язково цього досягнемо, як і всіх інших наших українських цілей.
Кожна держава, що стала членом ЄС, пройшла через аналогічний формат перемовин. Україна спробує зробити це швидше, ніж інші, але незмінно у спільних інтересах нашої держави та усієї Європи. Ми ухвалювали, ухвалюємо і будемо ухвалювати всі необхідні закони, щоб Україна вже ніколи не відкололась від європейського дому. Дякуємо кожному, хто з Україною, усім, хто вірить у наших людей, хто працює з Україною і таким чином забезпечує всій Європі стабільне та захищене від агресії майбутнє.
Україна змінює все. І саме так, як потрібно для збереження Європи. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And Hiram Slava.
And Rum Slava. And a big thanks to Andre the Giant for also joining Zelensky today for the speech. And with that, that is the
Man,
end.
don't mess with that, man. Man could snap your neck in a twig.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. I never knew that they had Kingpin from Spider-Man in the Ukrainian government. 1 second, let me go pull that up so I can make this land. Hang on. Hold tight, everyone. Hang on. Hold tight, everyone. I said hold tight. Hang on, folks. It's about to be here. It's about to be here. It's here. Kingpin.
Oh, oh no. Man, I don't know if that's a violation or a compliment.
Well, man, this guy had raw strength in the Spider-Man movie, apparently. I never watched it, but I heard of this guy, and he became a meme. But, you know, we got Kingpin out here in the Ukrainian government. But beyond that, it is now time for us to move on from the news and on into the next segment of this stream, which is the question segment, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And we get to have an incredibly fun time with that, because we get to talk to y'all about anything and everything y'all want to talk about. Y'all want to talk about Kingpin? Y'all want to talk about Kingpin. Y'all want to talk about food? We can talk about food. Y'all want to talk about how those guys swan dived off that boat and one of them went under the boat? We can talk about that. We can talk about anything. We can talk about where you're from. We can talk about hood review. I mean, we could talk about whatever the hell's going on in Syria. Like, what the hell's going on in Damascus. We can talk about anything and everything y'all want to talk about, because this is the question segment. Nothing is off limits unless if it's political. Then that would be off limits. But everything else, completely on the table. We can talk about it. And so, with that, I hope that does address, or at least lay out, the fun times ahead of us incredibly well. And Matthew, I was just told by Kaltenberg said, Enforcer, you do know the big guy could find you. Oh, God. It's like, man, that big guy found me. He was just like, you. And then pick me up and just break me in two or something like that. I'd be scared. Oh, hey, by the way, I forgot to mention, everyone, it does look like Israel and Lebanon are still going to war, because there was an engineering unit that started moving to the border today, which is usually preceding an Israeli ground operation. So let me show y'all that clip really quickly before we move on to the question segment. We got some interesting audio playing in the background, but we're going to mute that. And we can see them on the move. Quite a large amount of them as well.
I hear people are still fleeing from Lebanon in mass as well, and also even more countries are telling their people to get out while they can.
I've heard that as well, and it looks as though things certainly are heating up in the area. But that's all we had, and I wanted to make sure to show you that, just to make sure to keep you all updated, because that's what we do here on this channel, and it does still look like war is on the horizon in between Israel and Lebanon. But with that, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so moving into our final question segment of the night, the most highly anticipated part of the stream, we have one poll to address. And it says right here, today, EU countries blocked citizens from viewing several Russian-aligned websites. And the question is it a smart move? 44% said yes, it's a smart move. Do not let people see the sites. While 24% said no, let people decide on their own and see it anyway. And 22% said, I don't support censorship whatsoever. And on this one, I'm actually going to be in the minority on this one. It's never a good idea to start suppressing information, even if that information is something you strongly disagree with. In my opinion, it's never good to do that. And I know people are going to say, well, look, you censor people right here on your own channel. Well, that's true, but then again, we're not the government. We're a private YouTube channel, and we're, picking and choosing what we want in our chat. So that's a little bit different. But the government doing it, that to me has always been something you do not want to sponsor. The government should not become the arbiter of what information people get to see and what information people get blocked from. That's never a good thing. Obviously, I don't agree with the Russian-aligned websites whatsoever. It's pure garbage. It's stuff that I don't agree with whatsoever. But at the same time, we should never suppress it, because that makes the Russians look like maybe they're saying something that we don't want our people to see, and it could have more of a nefarious undertone behind it, depending on who's looking at it. So I'm with the 24%. Let the people decide on their own. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would have to stay within the same camp as well for the large part, because they may be Russian aligned, but free speech is a pinnacle of Western liberal ideals. And when I say liberal, it's not of a modern liberal concept that would fall within the political rule. It's more of the intellectual ideas of liberal democracies, which is what defines the Western world. So going off of that, I would say that that is largely in opposition to that kind of an idea, and I would not be for that. The only time I could see such a suppression happening would be during wartime, but the European Union is not in wartime, and also the United States and other NATO members are not in a state of wartime either. So I would have to say that during a state of peacetime, suppression of speech like this is not really that good of a look. And a lot of people are saying, hey, well, I mean, we don't really agree with them, right? Yeah, but that's not the point. Free speech isn't because you agree with people, you allow them to say stuff that agrees with you. You have to allow them to also say stuff that disagrees with you as well. It's a part of how things work. Otherwise, we end up being as authoritarian as the Russians or the Chinese are, and we say that we allow our citizens rights, but only the rights that we agree with, and only to say the things that we agree with and allow as well. And of course, a lot of people feel very strongly about the pro-Western interests and pro-Ukrainian interests that we talk about on the stream, which I completely understand. And of course, we are massively pro-Ukrainian and pro-Western. That is really the entire premise of this channel, is not really being pro-Ukrainian, but really being pro-Western as a whole. And so, of course, those statements are in direct opposition to our objective of being pro-Western. Would those statements be allowed? Would pro-Russian statements be allowed on this channel? No. But should governments step in the way of allowing people to say their own ideas and their own opinions and censor things that governments do not agree with? No, I don't believe that that is the role of any Western government anywhere in the world, unless if it is a emergency situation like wartime. Then suppression like that could be acceptable under very rare circumstances, but currently, no. And you have to remember that the only reason that folks here in the West can be pro-Ukrainian is because we have free speech. We had free speech at the beginning of the war for all of y'all to decide, out of the two arguments that you were hearing, which one you liked better and which one you liked worse. And all of y'all ended up picking that you liked the pro-Ukrainian sentiments a lot better than the pro-Russian statements. Who's to say that our government wouldn't have been a little bit different at the beginning of the war? And instead of having a pro-Ukrainian government, we had a pro-Russian government. And then instead of us talking about pro-Russian websites being shut down, pro-Ukrainian websites were shut down instead. Does that seem necessarily fair? No, it does not. And that's the kind of metric that you always have to measure the suppression of rights with. It's not just it doesn't affect us as it affects them kind of a thing. It affects them, but it'll also possibly affect us in the future and come back at us with a vengeance. And you always have to look at those kinds of issues and those kinds of decisions from that kind of a lens and decide, would I want that kind of restriction put on what I believe? And the answer to that would be certainly not. And therefore, for that reason, I can't really agree with that kind of suppression. On top of that, I also believe that the pro-Ukrainian argument is such a strong and well-founded argument, at least the way we put it out here on this channel, that there really is no way that that kind of speech could really pose a serious risk or a serious threat. I mean, like, at the end of the day, what suppression of speech says is that we are so scared that it's going to have a destabilizing factor because the argument they make is so strong that there is simply no way for us to combat that with our own speech and with our own arguments being put forward in our defense. And that's what suppression of speech really says to me, and that's why I'm more than happy with saying the pro-Russians ought to be completely uncensored here in America and here in the Western world, because I believe that statements like we make on this channel can simply defeat them without any help from government intervention to suppress their ability to even say stuff at all. That would be the way I look at it, because I'm not one at all to stray away from a debate or possibly winning out over another side. And I have a feeling that that is also a much better look for the pro-Ukrainian world, is to be able to defeat the Russians in open, outright debates and also just pointing out logical topics and points instead of trying to suppress them, which it makes it look like at that point that whatever they said had a very clear validity to it that was so strong there was no other way to combat it rather than shutting it down completely. And so with that, I hope
And
that...
also another thing as well is I see some people saying, well, it's not information, it's propaganda. And that is true. The stuff you're seeing on these Russian-aligned websites is propaganda. Nobody's disputing that. However, we can't go as far as to say we're going to start picking and choosing what we call propaganda, because right now, for example, the EU is controlled by a pro-Western control. We won't go any further than that. They're controlled by a pro-Western government. However, let's say they switch to a pro-Russian government, all of a sudden the arbiters of free speech are saying now, well, actually, the lies are being pro-Ukraine. If you say anything that you're pro-Ukraine, then that's a lie. Now that's the new propaganda. And then they start blocking things like that. That's why we can't get into that, because it leads to such a bad situation and a ton of gray area for nefarious actors who then could take control and say, actually, we're determining this is now the forbidden speech. And we can't even go down that road, because once you go down the road like that, you're never coming back from it. Like, it's finished. Whoever gets in there is going to start changing and picking and choosing what they call propaganda. So, I'm not a fan of that personally. If we could get some type of like guarantee in like a perfect world that nobody would abuse that power, then I would say go ahead, ban the Russian websites. But the mere fact that abuse of that power is there and a possibility, tells me don't go anywhere near that.
And also, I saw someone in the chat, Angel Arch, or Angel Arc, said, most people are not as smart as you, Enforcer. They just believe what they see on the internet. Now, I'm going to say something here to be a devil's advocate, and I want to make that very clear before I say it. How in the world am I not influencing people on the internet? What if some people who listen to this channel are just listen to believe the first thing they hear, and if they heard both sides, they would go and pick the Russian side? Who's to say that? I mean, because to say something like that, we start going down a very dangerous path when you start saying, well, people are too stupid for A, B, and C, so we have to pick for them. Well, that could go on to unbelievable levels. We could start to say, well, the people in America are too stupid to pick their own leaders, so let's just pick them for them. Then we start getting down a very dangerous path when you just assume that the common citizen is too stupid for their own good, and the government should do things in their best interest, whether they like it or not, or whether it's a good thing or not. Then you start getting into a very dangerous path, like Nazi Germany, where they go, oh, the German people, they're too stupid to see what the evil masterminds are doing behind the scenes to them, in the Weimar Germany. We should take over and decide what's best for them. We should start killing the Jews in mass because the German people, they don't know what's best for them. These Jewish people may be German people, but they don't know what's best for themselves, and the best thing for them is extermination. We could start going down very dangerous paths like that if you assume that your common citizen is too stupid for basic comprehension. And that's one thing that I'm not a big fan of promoting. I believe that we should go off of the metric that people are people. Whether they be stupid, whether they be smart, everyone has the exact same rights as the other, and the government should not get in the way of stepping in and saying what sort of speech is acceptable for the people to hear, and what kind of speech is not acceptable for the people to hear based off of how stupid we assume people are. It is not the government's it's not the government's role to gauge how stupid the citizenry are, considering that stupid citizenry is the one voting them into power in most Western governments. Well, really, all Western governments are self-determining, so those same stupid people are the one voting these folks into power. So if they're that stupid to not be able to discern good information from bad information, we have to block them from hearing stuff. Why in the world are these smart enough to then vote these people into their offices? That seems like a contradiction of logic to me that is really unavoidable. And once again, in my opinion, I believe that pro-Russian institutions should be allowed to speak. I mean, I don't believe in the suppression on a governmental level of anything as far as speech is concerned. I believe that speech should be as unadulterated and as free as possible unless it's a wartime situation. Then the rules are changed drastically on everything. That's just how it works. But in peacetime like it is here, we can't say what people should hear and shouldn't hear, because who's to say that flips tomorrow and then it becomes people shouldn't be able to hear pro-Ukrainian statements? That you always have to remember, when you advocate things like this, it is very easy for it to turn around back on you. A lot of people wanted a communist government to be in control in the Soviet Union, and guess what happened to a lot of those revolutionaries? A lot of them ended up getting purged by Stalin and killed in the 30s, just about 10 years after they brought the Soviet government into power. That's how it happens everywhere. People always go, it's fine to oppress those people because they're not me. And then in a few years' time, a new power will come in charge, and they'll use that same kind of logic against you. And you set the precedent for them to be able to do something like that. It's not a good move. It's not a good look. And especially in countries like the West, where we say that we are so free, so much more free than Russia. We don't allow censorship. Like we don't permit censorship on a government level. Look at the Russians. They hide all of this pro-Ukrainian information from their people because they're so scared of what people may believe if they actually get to see the other side. And then we start doing the same thing as them. It makes us look like we're scared of what the Russians have to say. And I, for one, am not scared at all. They can throw in whatever comments they want. And it's not going to change a damn thing in the West. People still aren't going to believe them. The Russians look like a joke at this point, so let them have at it. The worst they could do is make themselves look like bigger idiots. That would be my opinion. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. And if you agree with me, that's great. And if you disagree with me, it's fine. It's free. It's free speech. We do allow free speech on this channel to an extent, unless if it's something pro-Russian or anti-Western. We don't allow that. But I'll allow y'all to agree or disagree all y'all want on that topic because, it's one that's open for debate. But still, I would have to say I'm generally against the suppression of free speech on a governmental or a national level. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the questions, I believe.
All right, so moving on to our questions once again. Up first, we have a $50 donation from John B. Rimple, the channel legend. And thank you very much, John, for that $50 support. Very generous. He said, keep up the good work, gentlemen, and take one from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for wanting us to keep up that good work. John B. Rimple, an absolute channel legend through and through. And I got to thank you so much once again for being here with us still a long time after you start watching this channel and wanting us to keep up the good work and supporting this channel so that way we can keep up the good work. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat, but I just got to thank you massively once again, John B. Rimple, not only for supporting this channel, but really for being a long-time viewer and always sticking the course with us. That is absolutely incredible. And we got to thank you greatly for being one of those old guards that has taken the long march with this channel. And so with that, what do we got for a live chat, Matthew? Sponsored by John B. Rimple.
So this live chat question goes to Andy L., who's also a legend in his own right. He says, is Russia the weakest paper tiger in military history? Are they the most phony?
I would say, I don't know. That's a good question. I would actually say probably not, because the one that seemed to be the biggest paper tiger that I could think of would really be the Iraqis leading up to the Gulf War, because they had the third largest military on earth at that time behind, I believe it was the Russian Federation. Well, actually, it was the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union was collapsing at that point, so they still had the second largest military in the world. Well, no, I'm sorry. The Soviet Union actually had the largest military in the world at the time. The United States was the second largest, and then Iraq was the third largest. And so you had the second and third largest military powers going up against each other. And the Iraqis at the time had very advanced Soviet technology in their arsenal. They had been able to buy some of the best equipment out there for 1991's time frame. And the United States and the coalition, really for the large part, ended up slaughtering the Iraqis. It was an unbelievable slaughter. Like, let me go pull up the Gulf War really quickly to just give you an idea of how bad that slaughter was. Because I don't really know if it should be called a war or the slaughter of Iraq part 1, because the casualties were insane. So here's the casualties. 292 killed on the coalition side. And then, let's see, 147 were killed by enemy action, 145 of them were killed by non-hostile deaths, which is a very political way of saying friendly fire. So we almost lost as many to friendly fire as we did to enemy fire, to show you how non-lethal the Iraqis really were. But the Iraqis, on the other hand, lost about 20,000 to 50,000 killed, and we weren't ever really able to iron down a good number on that, because calculating how many people were dead out of sometimes charred masses that looked like coal was really hard to do. So we just assumed that it's somewhere in between 20 to 50,000, but a lot more than 292, or really 147 if we're only counting the enemy action deaths. So you can get an idea that the Iraqis were a massive paper tiger. Not only that, they lost 3,000 tanks, 2,200 artillery pieces, 2,100 APCs, 110 aircraft, and 137 additional aircraft fled the country during the war, and 19 ships were sunk, with an additional 9 damaged. Now, that is a lot. And that was also just over the span of a mere 6 months that they lost all of that equipment. And when you put that into perspective, I think that the Iraqis truly are the biggest paper tiger in modern history. Because they had such a good start. I mean, they really did. I'm not lying. They had a really good start. They had pretty modern tanks. They had T-72As, which at the time were pretty good. I mean, that was about what the Soviet Union had in common service at the time. It was either that or a T-80. So that was, fairly modern tech for them. They also had, and let me see here if I can find some additional pictures. Man, they had loads of pictures of the coalition. And there's our boy Schwarzkopf, the absolute G, the mastermind of the entire Gulf War. Truly one of the best leaders in modern American history, at least in my opinion. And then, let's see, what else? Dang, I'm trying to find y'all some good stuff here. Well, I'd be dipped. They had T-55s. I mean, that was actually fairly good for the time as well. The Soviet Union still had T-55s in frontline service around that time. But I'll be dipped. They don't really show a lot of pictures of the Iraqis. Oh, here we go. Here's some pictures of Iraqi vehicles. We have some BMP-1s, some BMP-2s. We also have some T-50, T-62s, and I believe a T-72 mixed in there somewhere. But you can see it was not bad tech. I mean, that's what the Russians are using in the modern day. So you can see that they actually were a pretty strong military for the time. And not only that, their Air Force was really good as well. They had, MiG-25s, MiG-29s. They had some of the best stuff that the Soviet Union could provide at the moment, and they still ended up getting beat hands down. I mean, it wasn't even really a contest. So I would have to say they were the biggest paper tiger, but the Russians are certainly getting on up there. I would say that they are the biggest paper tiger. If we wanted to give them the biggest paper tiger role of something, I would say that they're the biggest paper tiger of a supposed major power in the world. Because the Chinese do have some bark to their bite. The United States, of course, has more bark than their bite, to be entirely honest. And then the Russians have all bark and no bite. So I would say that they were the biggest paper tiger of any major power, but I wouldn't go so far as to say they were the biggest paper tiger ever. I think that claim goes for the Iraqis, really. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you so much once again for that support, John B. Rempel, and sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But before we get on to the next one, though, I don't know if y'all know this, but we only 3 subscribers away from 231,000. If you hit the subscribe button, let's go, baby! If you hit that subscribe button right now, you might be the 231,000th subscriber in channel history. Hit that subscribe button, folks. Make yourself the 231,000th. Why not? Why not? But with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, real quick, before we move on to our next super chat, I just wanted to point something out because it kind of relates to the free speech point we were making earlier today. I see here on Twitter, a lot of people have caught on that Visegrad24 was banned off of Twitter or suspended, and now they've been reinstated. And shockingly enough, by the way, I've never seen anything from Visegrad24 that suggests they're pro-Russian or biased in any way whatsoever. And I watch them all the time. They're one of the main sources I look at when we aggregate the news. But here are several pro-Ukraine accounts on Twitter bashing them, talking about they're politically leaning one way or another, they're anti-Ukraine, and that just goes to prove the point that everyone has a different perspective on everything. Like, even pro-Ukraine people are attacking this channel, which has never put out anything pro-Russian whatsoever, and they're arbitrating whether or not this is an actual propaganda channel. And according to some pro-Ukraine people, it was, which it wasn't. So that's just a good point to show you that it can literally change in an instant. And even people that mean good can misinterpret stuff to be propaganda when it's really not. So that's why we can't even go down that road, people. It's not a good road to go down. But I'm glad Visegrad24 is back. But Enforcer, what say you?
We hit 231,000. Let's go!
Let's go!
Baby!
Let's go, Jack!
Oh, what the hell, Jack? What happened? What the hell? But beyond that, absolutely insane. We hit 231,000 subscribers. Absolutely insane. But moving on from that, yes, I would have to agree with Matthew there. I would actually have to agree because I don't know. Some of y'all, actually a third of y'all, probably were not here for the dark ages of the channel, crazily enough. But one thing that was really interesting to go through something a while ago that happened that still it reminds me of who people are, and that's why we have nothing to do anymore with anyone outside of this channel on YouTube, period, no matter who they are, is that a long time ago, back in October of 2023, which was last year, we were doxxed and harassed by a particular person on YouTube. And not only that, they started to steal our material, our entire live streams, and just run them on their channel, which is a complete violation of YouTube copyright rules. And so we enforced our copyright that naturally exists. And some people are really stupid and ignorant about the law. And I find that a lot of YouTubers who cover the Ukraine war, in this instance, act like they know a lot more than they really do, because they wanted to make it sound like copyrights don't exist unless you have an official copyright. But the reality is that copyrights naturally exist on your own original work. These channels, well, this channel that we run in these live streams, are our own original work. And so if you play what we say on another channel, that is copyright infringement. And then we have a responsibility either to have that copyrighted material that is being stolen taken down, or to let it slide, depending on if we want it to or not, because we're the copyright holders, so we have discretion on if we let it slide or not. And considering that this particular person was doxing us and harassing us a great deal, and on that instant alone, we decided to enforce the copyrights that we had on our content, which meant that this person was looking at a channel termination, because they had infringed on our material deliberately so many times that they ended up they were about to have their channel deleted. So then everyone on YouTube, pretty much it seemed, well, not everyone, but about half of everyone, decided to come out of the woodwork and start saying that we were a pro-Russian channel, simply because we were wanting this harassment to end, and we were also wanting this copyright infringement to end as well. And people were saying absolutely stupid things like, that's not copyright infringement. And also a whole bunch of other crazier things like, the enforcers have bad intentions, they're not good people, and they're not pro-Ukrainian, they're pro-Russian. And a whole bunch of other crazy stuff like that. And that really hit me. If the world worked off of what speech was allowed and not allowed off of public opinion, those people would have had this channel taken down back in October. And they actually tried just off of public opinion alone. And that's why we called that period in the channel the Dark Ages, because this channel lost about 2,500 subscribers over the next 48 hours from that point. It was the only time in channel history where we ever lost subscribers. And for the next 6 months after that, we were just continuously losing subscribers. We went from having 160,166 subscribers down to 156,657. And it was all off of lies that people were saying and were trying to destroy us off of bullshit. That was the entire premise of it, just because they disliked us and they wanted our voices suppressed because they didn't like something that we did in our own defense. And that really does bring it full circle that you've got to remember, people like that, people who want to suppress free speech are dangerous people. They will use it as a weapon, not just against people who may actually disagree with you, but against people they personally don't like, and use the exact same kind of wordage to get other people, maybe that aren't even pro-Russian. We're not pro-Russian at all. I mean, we're truly not. I mean, many of y'all have watched this channel night and night again. I don't have to defend ourselves. Our content and what we say and what we do speaks for itself. But people will use that as a shield and a weapon to try and shut down other people they don't like, and do it under the premise of, hey, we all don't like pro-Russians, right? Well, that guy's a pro-Russian. I have absolutely no reason to say that, and I'm flat out lying, but I'll use it as a weapon against those people if it helps me out. And that's why I'm not for that, because you might start off on that path with well intentions, but suppression of speech never ends on well intentions. It ends up being used as a weapon against us. It ends up being used as a weapon against y'all, and it is used as a very questionable thing. And I'll be entirely honest, speaking about that whole experience with the Dark Ages and everything in the channel, I will never forget the people who decided to come out and say absolutely unfounded things against us. I will, speaking about that on a side note, because many people will be sitting there and wondering, well, what is your opinion on that? I'm not someone in that kind of an instance, especially when someone tried to destroy pretty much our lives, considering that this is what we do for a living. I'm never going to forgive those people, and those people know who they are. And the people who watch this channel, that may watch those channels and know about it, can go and send this message to those people. I will never forgive them. We know everyone who publicly was against us. We know everyone who was quietly against us and was saying things in the background against us. And it is something that I will never forget, how people just decided one day, when we were dealing with our own situation that was becoming incredibly dangerous at that point, and when we were dealing with an incredibly mentally unstable person, and we're trying to find any way to protect ourselves, and decided to just hop on a bandwagon one day and start saying the most unfounded things against us, just because they just wanted to. I'll never forget any of those people, and I will never forgive them either. I'll make that incredibly clear. And that's one of the main reasons why many of y'all have never seen a guest on this channel since then. No one who was a part of that, or no one who quietly said anything against us on that topic, will ever be back on this channel, or will ever have anything affiliated with this channel. And it really was something. We've got to thank y'all, and this is why I make massive speeches about this all the time, especially when folks throw in super chats or kind words in the live chats, that y'all stuck with us, that y'all didn't believe that crap. Because those people really did want to tear this channel down completely to its roots, to the point that it wouldn't exist. And from what it looked like, at least on the outset, it looked like they were about to win. And there was just nothing we could do, because they were going to turn everyone they could against us if possible. Just saying the most unfounded, most slanderous things you could imagine, just to turn people against us that had no founding in reality. And that's why I'm not a fan of suppression of speech. because it has been tried on us and has failed. But if it had succeeded, this channel would not exist. And if you like this channel, you have to be for free speech, because this channel only exists through a premise of free speech that is allowed in the United States. And so with that, I hope that does. Also, Word Guy said, never mind that none of them tried to apologize or anything. Yeah, that was also the crazy, shocking thing, is that everyone who sided with that one person that we're talking about during that time has ended up parting with that guy on extremely bad terms and ending up dealing with pretty much the exact same crap we dealt with back then. And I knew that was going to happen. I remember, y'all can go back and look at the streams that were happening while we were starting to go through the Dark Ages. I sat there and said, all of these people who have teamed up with this mentally deranged lunatic will have that come back and haunt them, because that mentally deranged lunatic will eventually turn on them. And crazily enough, he literally turned on every single one of them over the course of then to now, over really just 8 months. And we knew that was going to happen. And all these people who had no idea what was going on, or they knew what was going on and they just didn't give a damn, just would come out of the woodworks and say crap against us.
Man, I called it too. I knew he was going to use whoever he could, because that's all he ever does. He just uses people and then tosses them away when he's finished with them. And that's what he did with all the other people he's associated with as well. He literally tore the entire pro-Ukraine community apart. That guy single-handedly, by using them to basically advance this pro-Russian narrative that everyone else is bad except for him, because he's the only one that has any credibility in his own head. Like, we saw that coming from like 100 miles away, that he was going to turn on all those people. He did do that. And now all the people that got turned on are going to pretend like nothing ever happened. And now they've gone about their way, like totally like removing him from their lives and everything like that. And they just moved on from then. Like, it's crazy.
It is crazy. It's insane to see. And one of the people that really stuck out to us the most, at least in my opinion, was this one that we actually had on as a guest on our channel at one point, to give y'all all a little bit of a story, because a lot of y'all may be new, because a third, like I was saying, really 70,000 subscribers have joined us since January, meaning that most of y'all weren't around for when this happened. But one thing that was really interesting to me is that way back in the day, on the 2nd year anniversary of the war, I believe it was. Actually, it was the 1st year anniversary of the war. We had on a guest. It was one of the guests that was on during that show. And I believe we still have that stream up where y'all can all watch it. And we sat there, and I know, because the subscriber number showed, that guy went from having 50,000 subscribers to about 75,000 subscribers about a week and a half after he left our show. And we were assuming that a lot of those came from him being on the show, because that's why everyone wanted to be on our show. It is the biggest live stream that covers this kind of stuff. It's big exposure for people who can get on the show. And so we helped grow this guy. We have nothing but we have nothing but good things to say about the guy. I have nothing but kind words and support to say to him behind the scenes. Never an ill intention towards the guy whatsoever. And then it comes down to that one moment where this guy has doxed us, he has harassed us, he's telling his fans to harass us, and it is absolute hell on earth to even live. We're in the middle of law school. People are finding out where we are at in law school and trying to call up our law school and have us harassed there directly, trying to have us swatted while at school, and all that kind of stuff. So we try to have this guy taken down, and this guy, who we pretty much gave a massive shout out to and had nothing but support to give, decided to turn on us and say that what we were doing was really shitty, and really having absolutely no context. But then later coming out after people told him, no, this guy has doxed them, harassed them, and he said, okay, well, maybe he's doxed them and harassed them, but that's not too bad. And it's like, oh, so it's like, so people can dox and harass people just because they dislike them, for no good reason, just because they dislike them, and they can lie about them and everything they want, and you're fine with that. In fact, you'll side against people who've helped you out in the past to go join a hill and die on it, to then turn against the guy later because he cusses you out behind the scenes. You know, it was absolutely a stupid time. It was one of the dumbest times ever, and it really taught me a lesson that really everyone on YouTube, just to leave y'all with something. And I'm not saying this to get y'all on a crusade, but from what I understand now, everyone on YouTube that we've dealt with is largely a snake, and I would never trust them ever. Either if in the future if I had kids, I'd never trust them around my kids. I'd never trust them dealing with anything. I'd never trust them to run a stream with them or a show with them, because at the end of the day, most of them are narcissists. And everything is about them and their advancement of themselves. And it's absolutely crazy to see people like that, and it's just so prevalent in this category because we're not like that, and we assume that most other people are probably just chill folks too, and then you find out that none of them are like that. And so that's why we have nothing to do with anyone anymore. And to be quite honest, that's really benefited us well because we've ended up exploding over the past few months, doing everything on our own, and we'll just keep doing it that way. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next. But I thought I'd just share that little story with y'all because it is one to be remembered about how this channel is treated and how people try to suppress us by using free speech to suppress free speech. And we'll never forget that, and we'll never forgive the people who joined that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping back into our super chat segment here, we have one from Toadman the First, who threw in another massive one. This time it's a $100 donation. Massive support. Thank you very much, Toadman, once more. He says, I wish I was there to show support, because this is the best place to get pure facts and information from the war. And long live the LSA, to the moon and back, LSA all the way.
And thank you so much for that unbelievable support at Toadman the First and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say that I gotta thank you so much for the kind words. It would have been nice to have you around back in the day, Toadman the First, and supporting the channel, but it was what it was. And I gotta say this, while I was talking about that and sounded kind of a little bit angry and maybe a little bit bitter about how all that turned out, the one thing that makes me happy about that, and the silver lining that it showed, is that no one was going to put us down. No one was going to stop us from saying what we were going to say and doing what we were going to do. We kept going. Like, even during the low times of the channel, when these streams were getting less viewership, when our videos were getting less viewership, we kept going. We kept trucking on every single day. And we've eventually overcome the dark ages of the channel, and now we are at an unbelievable height. We are almost we are literally tonight 30,000 subscribers, 70,000 subscribers above the Dark Ages low point, which is a huge thing. It's unbelievable to think that we've gotten that far and we've climbed that high out of something like that. And now we know that nothing ahead of us is ever going to slow us down or stop us, because they already tried and they failed. And so that's one thing that we know for sure. But still, thank you so much once again for enjoying the facts and the information that we put out here, Toadman the First, and making sure to always keep this stream running and always keep this thing rolling. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And thank you so much once again, Toadman the First, for the unbelievable and massive support. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to Danny3648, who put in a $50 donation as well. Huge shout out to you, Danny, for that support. He said, hi guys, Danny3648 here. Any news on Russia changing its nuclear doctrine? And keep it up, guys, and thank you for the engaging news and incredible rabbit holes, and I'm learning a lot.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Danny3648. And thank you for enjoying this channel and wanting to see it keep on running. And also, we do have a little bit of news. Russia hinted at changing its nuclear doctrine from defensive to offensive, meaning that they would be able to conduct offensive tactical nuclear strikes. But from what we know, they have never changed that nuclear doctrine. It was an insinuation that they would, and that was done by Putin's visit in Vietnam, but we've never seen the nuclear doctrine actually change. So at the moment, it's on the table to be changed, but it has not changed yet. So that's what that's what we know at the moment. But still, thank you so much for the kind words and wanting us to keep it up. And thank you so much for enjoying the rabbit holes and also the news, because rabbit holes are something that I try and limit a lot nowadays. I feel like I go into a few of them, but they've gotten a lot longer than they used to be in the past. But I love doing them, and I absolutely love getting to talk to all y'all every single night and get to talk about the news and the rabbit holes, and also get to answer y'all's questions, which are incredibly good. And thank you so much once again, Danny3648, for that incredible support, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next super chat, whoa, Jack. But anyways, our next one goes to Howard Turgell, who's a channel legend as well. He puts in a $25 donation, and huge shout out to Howard for that support. And also, I'm glad your shirt finally arrived. It's about time that thing showed up. I'm glad you got it. He said, it's Taco Tuesday.
And it is Taco Tuesday. We had tacos today. We actually did, no joke. And they were
we had
good.
tacos.
They were so good, man. Like, those were great tacos.
They were so juicy. I'll tell you what, I wish I had more of them. We only got 3 per piece or 3 per person. But they were so good, so tasty.
Oh my lord, they were delicious. I mean, they were insanely good. Our mom cooked them, and dang, it was good. It was. Well, we can't say that where she got them from. But beyond that, they were amazing, absolutely incredible. And so I got to say, thank you so much, Howard Turgell, for the Taco Tuesday support because we used it today. We already cashed it in before we got the Taco Tuesday support. And I got to thank you once again for making sure that our Tuesdays stay taco. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have 2 super chats here. The first one is from Andy L, who threw in a $20 donation. And we also had a 20 from William Dugard, who threw in a 20 as well. And I don't see comments on either one of them, but huge shout out to Andy and also William, and huge thanks for our support because, as we always say, the support is what keeps the channel running because we're largely crowdfunded by the viewers mostly. So it really means a lot, and thank you both. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank both of y'all as well, Andy L. and William DeGard, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but the both of y'all, I hope y'all do know that if it wasn't for y'all, the silent supporters and the supporters who put comments in their super chats, this channel would not be possible. Every single one of y'all, the few of y'all actually, who support this channel through the super chats, make this thing possible on a night-to-night basis. So far on this stream, 53,000 people have watched, and out of those 53,000 people, I believe, and let me make sure, let's see, there's only been, this is the craziest thing, there have only been, I think, 30 super chats out of the 53,000 people who have watched. Y'all are the small group of people who make our stream possible, the ad-free, sponsor-free streams that allow 53,000 people to watch. It's why we always give such a huge shout out and a credit to y'all, because in reality, none of y'all have to support the channel. It is a choice. It is an option that y'all have every single night, whether y'all want to support it or not. And no one is obligated to support this channel. Everyone could sit back and just enjoy the stream without having to worry a single bit about throwing a cent towards this channel. A single penny. Y'all would not have to worry about that at all. Y'all could all watch it and just enjoy it. But nevertheless, some of y'all enjoy this channel so much that y'all take it upon yourselves, the very small few that do every single night, to support this channel and help us to make this financially possible to do this as a job and work at this every single day. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, Andy L, and also not only Andy L, but William DeGard, we would not be able to be here tonight. We wouldn't be able to be here every single night we have been so far for 853 continuous days. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support to both of y'all and helping this channel to keep on running, because the very few of y'all who support this channel make this channel possible for so many. And so with that, I thank y'all both once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Jolly Hiveling, who throws in a 20. And huge shout out to Jolly for that support. They said, I haven't heard much from the Russian Volunteer Corps, and have you heard any new news as of lately? And also, thank you for that news report.
And thank you for enjoying the news report. And also, to answer your question, we have heard a little bit about the Russian Volunteer Corps. They are currently inside of Vovchansk right now, helping to support the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the city. They took very high casualties, however, inside of Shebekino during their incursion into the Belgorod Oblast, and from what we understand, they publicly stated that they did not meet many or any of their objectives while inside the Russian Federation, and so it appears that their incursion into Belgorod was a failure. However, their defense of Vovchansk has been wildly successful, and they've also been a critical part of the Ukrainian counterattack currently ongoing in the city. So that's the information that we have at the moment, a very small amount, but still a fairly good summary of what the Russian Volunteer Corps has been doing, and I got to thank you so much once again for enjoying this report and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I gotta say, this is something else that's crazy. The report that we put out earlier today, and I hate kind of doing this, but you know, speaking of people enjoying things, we kind of have to talk about it and toot the whistle a little bit. The news report that we put out today has gotten 236,000 views so far. It's gotten more views than this channel has gotten subscribers, and that is normal these days, which is crazy. I can't believe so many people are enjoying the news reports, but we are absolutely humbled and honored to have so many people watching them and enjoying them. We never thought we would be in a position like that, to be one of the leading voices in that kind of a news segment, but nonetheless, we are now. And I got to say, massive thanks to all of y'all for that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, Jolly Hoveling, for the support. Absolute channel legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Andy L. Once again, he throws in another super chat, and this time it's a $50 donation. Huge shout out to Andy for the second large support of the night. And of course, Andy's a channel legend, and he says very simply, support LSA.
And support LSA, baby! And I gotta thank you so much for your second support of the night, Andy L. And supporting the Lee Spring Army, and helping us to make sure that this channel will keep on running. And one day, this channel will be growing into an actual, and this will be crazy, mainstream news organization. I think it's actually in the future of this channel that we will be able to do something like that. And one day, we will be able to sit there and say on air, maybe even on a television channel, that it was thanks to folks like you, Andy L., and everyone else who supported us tonight, that this channel was able to have a breath of life to last so long and do so much to make it possible to be able to turn into a full-on mainstream news channel. And I got to thank you greatly once again, Andy L., for supporting the Lee Spring Army and helping this channel to keep on running, so that way one day we can hopefully make that kind of a reality possible and change the way that news is reported within this nation and within the entire Western world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well, Andy L. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Wellness LSA Latvia, who puts in a $10 donation. And he says, LSA.
LSA, baby! And I gotta thank you so much, Wellness LSA Latvia, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. All the way from the great country of Latvia, a Baltic state, and right along the border of the Russian Federation. And I got to say, that's wonderful to have you here, our Lee Spring Army hoof trimmer, which I still think that's a really cool job. A very, I would assume that it's niche, but considering that the cattle industry here in America is so big, I would have to assume in America, hoof trimmers are actually a pretty common occupation, although I haven't really heard much of them before. But it is still cool to have you here. Not only a Latvian viewer, but a hoof trimmer. A very interesting occupation. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so with that, long live the Lee Spring Army, and we are on to the next one.
And we have two super chats from Darren Quinn. They're each a $10 donation, and huge shout out to Darren for the support. Hey! And the first one says, for the Red Tank Crew attack vid after the psycho drone playing chicken. And in my army, LSATs arrived in 2 weeks exactly. And thanks, always.
Hey, and no problem at all. And I'm glad that you finally got the tees. We have heard that sometimes the shipping is taking a little while on the t-shirts, and we're sorry for the delays, y'all. But beyond that, I'm glad to hear that a lot of people are finally, the last of the folks are finally getting them. And they are absolutely incredible looking. I actually got all 4 of ours, and if y'all want to see this, this was pretty funny. We actually got a pink LSA t-shirt, and I took a picture in it. Well, actually, we took a picture in it. Matthew was the one taking the picture. I was the one wearing it. But we actually put it on Patreon, and it is hilarious how funny that looks. Like, we were busting out laughing because I actually posed, and we did this deliberately because it looked goofy. I posed like I was thinking, and then we took a picture. It was goofy as hell, but it was funny, and we were getting a huge laugh out of ourselves, and we loved everyone on Patreon got a big laugh out of it too. But I got a load of those. I got one in army green, navy blue, and black, and then I got the pink one, which was just worn for the gaff, and now it's like sitting somewhere in the house. I don't even know where. But the black one, the navy blue one, and the army green one, I've actually worn in public. So if you're in the city of Birmingham, Alabama, and you ever see anyone wearing an LSA t-shirt, it might be me. It may possibly be me. I can't guarantee that though. But if you ever come up and be like, "Is that the enforcer?" I might say, "Hey," and then get like assassinated like John Lennon or something like that. And then that won't be that fun. But beyond that, I still have to say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you greatly for getting some LSATs, and also thank you so much for throwing in some support for the Red Tank Crew attack vid after the Psycho Drone playing chicken. And that Psycho Drone was playing chicken. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Darren Quinn once again, and this one he said, from USA to Marion Bay in South Australia into the national park in 2 weeks after ordering army tees. He said, paraplegic kneeboarding, cliff climbing, kneeboard surfing, whoop! and that's for the toadfish pop squeak.
Man, that toadfish pop squeak. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, and also, what a trip from USA to Marion Bay in South Australia into the national park in 2 weeks after ordering army teas. I mean, that is one hell of a trip. You've pretty much went all the way around the world. That sounds fun though. And also, am I understanding correctly? Are you a paraplegic? Because that is very interesting. I don't think I've met a paraplegic in real life, but one day I would like to meet a paraplegic and ask them what that's. Tell me, like I'm actually interested in that, because what is life like as a paraplegic? I would assume that it's a lot more difficult in some instances. And how do you overcome those challenges from that? Like, you know, seriously asking, because I always, like, one thing that I always think about, I don't know if y'all think about it, but I always think, I wonder if I lost an arm, or I went blind. How in the world would I start to live my life then? And what kind of challenges would there be with that? I'm always thinking about stuff like that for some reason in the back of my head, because it's a interesting thing, you know, because it's something that you can't fix, but it's something that you also have to live with as well. So then you have to naturally overcome the challenge. And how do you overcome those challenges and continue on? And that's something that I am always wondering about. And I would always, and whenever I meet anyone who ever has some kind of an affliction, like I used to know someone who had Parkinson's, I'd ask them, like, so how do you deal with when Parkinson's flares up? Because that's something a lot of people don't know, and I learned it from that fella, is that Parkinson's actually comes in waves. Like, you could actually have really good days, and then you could have really, really bad days. And so you have to deal with things differently day by day. It's not something that's really consistent. And so I thank you so much once again for support, and you know, if you want to share anything with us about that, please by all means do, because I'd be very interested to hear. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Darren Quinn, and amazing to know that you're wearing some LSA Army tees, and I hope you have some fun with them too. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one. And also, UH said, you don't know any handicapped persons? No, I do. It's just that I don't know paraplegics. I know, like, folks with, let me think. Well, I don't think I know anyone who's handicapped now, actually. I did know someone who had Parkinson's, and for a while, I knew, I think, one or two people who were in wheelchairs. But it was kind of like a temporary thing. I think one of them had, like, some sort of a temporary paralysis, and it could be overcome with therapy. But no, I don't think I know anyone who has a handicap currently. So yeah, I think I don't know anyone at the moment that would have an affliction like that. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Lee E. And you shout to Lee for that support as well. Very generous. Thank you very much, Lee. He said, it's time for a what if. What if Ukraine discovered a nuclear warhead in the back of an ammo bunker? Not that they would use it, but that they could now leverage it as a retaliatory weapon if struck with a tactical nuke. And would that not change the dynamics?
That actually would massively change the dynamics, because then it's a war between two nuclear-armed countries, which means that it would probably be one of the most important world wars on the face of the earth right now, without a question. It already is, but it would certainly enter a whole new level that would have the attention of everyone in the world, including the Chinese, at a constant rate. You would probably see that at that point, everyone in the world would be attempting to de-escalate, because a lot of people think, because of how we posture with the Russians in a nuclear sense right now, and also the Chinese, that nuclear weapons are kind of easily thrown about. But it's actually a very serious decision to be made, and especially when two countries are pitched in the throes of war and they are both nuclear armed, even if one side just has one nuclear weapon, it makes the situation extremely fragile and extremely dangerous. And so everyone usually starts trying to back everyone down. You would probably see that the Chinese would start using their economic leverage on the Russians to try and make them back out of the war. And you would probably see that all Western support for Ukraine would stop, and they would start trying to back Ukraine out of the conflict as well. And any negotiated resolution, even if it was a compromise and didn't make either side happy, would be much more accepted than a total victory by either side at that point. So I would say yes, Lee E, that would massively change the dynamic of the war. You would probably see that everyone would start de-escalating instead of escalating, because now, instead of escalating, and you know, it's a non-nuclear armed country fighting a nuclear armed country, so if Russia nukes them, it looks incredibly bad. So you can really escalate as far as you want, because the Russians don't want to have a bad a bad press release come out about them nuking a non-nuclear country. Then you have a nuclear-armed country and a nuclear-armed country, and in any moment they could go to blows and start dropping tactical nuclear weapons on each other. And that is something that really everyone will want to avoid because no one knows what kind of severity or dangerous situation could come out of an exchange like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion, on how that would go. And I got to thank you so much once again for support, Lee E, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Dad Karma 08, and thank you very much, Dad Karma, for that support. And they said, it's been a while since I've donated, and thank you guys. And he says that some viewer in our chat is Chris's mom? No, I don't think so.
No. Nah, we banned him a while ago. We banned Chris and Chris's mom a while ago, man. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, thank you so much, Dad Karma 08, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Herp Derp NV, who puts in a 10 and says, I wonder how much of the viewer increase was the hot dog sims posting clips of the show on other sites to attack you, but it actually ended up backfiring and giving the channel free advertising, LMAO. Herp Derp, one thing's for certain. We don't know the exact number, and it was probably a small number in reality, but we do know for a fact that several people that actually support the channel, I'm not sure if they're here tonight, I think maybe one is, several people that decided to support the channel are directly from Hot Dog Man's channel. They left his, and they were so upset that what he did to us, they came over here and started supporting our channel instead. So that's how bad they took it, is they started supporting us. So we do know that it backfired in a huge way in that. That attack did not go the way that guy wanted it to go. He even admitted that himself, that he should have never done that, even though that hadn't stopped him from doing it again. But he admitted he shouldn't have done it, but he's insane, so he did it again. That's just the definition of insanity. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say there is some of them that came over, but the reality is that not that many could have come over because we're talking about a channel with, like at the time, it was like, I think right at 60,000 subscribers, and they were only getting like 5,000 views a stream or video, which is really nothing. I mean, you know, because when I say it's really nothing, I guess if you're like an insignificant channel, it would be something. But when we're talking about nowadays getting about 350 to 400,000 views per day, 5,000 views a video is absolutely nothing. It's really limited to no exposure. But what is funny though is that whenever the guy makes a video on us, it gets like 20,000 views, and it's the only time he actually gets any views at all, which is why we believe the guy keeps doing it. But now he's losing subscribers every time he does it, so now he's stopped. But we know, like, you know, because some people who may know who Hot Dog Man is would probably say something like, well, Enforcer, he hasn't said anything about you for a month. Why do you always make riffs on the guy and joke about him and bring him up? Because the guy is just cooking right now. It's not that he's actually stopped. He's just cooking up his next hit piece or something stupid, and then he'll come right back at us again. That's what the guy does. I mean, the guy is actually mentally deranged and clownish. So we know that there's no point in really even dropping anymore, because back in the day, the guy would go silent for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then by like a week and a half in, I would say to Matthew, I'd be like, okay, I think the guy has actually dropped it and moved on. So we're going to stop making the jokes. The guy will probably move on, and then it'll be over. And then the guy would make another hit piece on us again. And so then we decided, you know what, instead of letting the guy have breathing room, we'll just clown on him forever until all eternity. Even if he shut down his YouTube channel, we'd still clown on the guy. And we'll just make sure that he never has breathing room or any sort of rest at this point, because the guy is sick in the head and he doesn't deserve any rest. So going on with that, that's why we keep bringing him up. And that's probably why you asked that question tonight, Herb Derp MV, about a Hot Dog Man. But not really many of them came over, but the ones who did actually ended up turning into super chatters. Which is hilarious to us, because that was one of the big things that the guy was trying to siphon off of us. Because he actually, this guy, I don't know what is this guy's thing, like with his IQ. It has to be below room temperature. But he would put out stuff publicly in places like Discord, and he would literally spell out his entire plan of why he was doing what he was doing to our channel. And at one point, he literally spelled out that the plan was, it wasn't that what we were doing is wrong. It's just that he wanted what we wanted. So he wanted the views, the subscribers, and the super chatters. So his plan was to try and destroy our channel and siphon all that over to his. That was the plan from day one, really. It wasn't that he actually thought we were pro-Russians. It wasn't that he actually thought what we were doing is wrong. He just wanted all that. So then he decided that he was going to start working on that. So it ended up backfiring on the guy massively. And now things are very different. But nah, I don't think many of them came over, but some of them did. Hello? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're back. Oh, we're alive.
Hey, we're back.
Hey, hey. Oh, man, that was scary. That was scary. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that incredibly well. Thank you so much once again for support, HerpDerpNV, and helping this channel to keep on running. And we're just going to keep this thing running like clockwork, baby, because the LSA never die. Put an LSA in the chat, baby. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Scott P, who puts in a $10 donation. Also, a huge shout out to Salvador as well, who also put in a 10. And we had a 5 from Robert Johnson. Huge shout out to Scott, Salvador, and Robert very much for that support and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank all three of y'all, Scott P, Salvador, and Robert Johnson, for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all, of course, didn't throw in comments, but the support is greatly appreciated and helps us to continue to make comments live on air, which is what this channel is always doing 6 days a week. And so I got to thank you massively for being a part of that and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Paul Andrews, who puts in a 10. And so it's kind of off topic, but what is the breakdown of people who watch your shows? Hopefully very international. And Slava Ukraine from Australia.
Good question. Actually, I believe nowadays the numbers are becoming a lot more international. Let me check our geography. Oh, wow. Not really. It's actually starting to become almost majority American again. 49.4% of our viewers over the past month are American, making up 3.2 million views. And then the next biggest groups are the UK at 10, Canada at 9.7, Australia at 5, Germany at 2.2, the Netherlands at 2.1, Sweden at 1.9, New Zealand at 1.7, the Philippines at 1.5, and then everyone else is below a percentage point. Interestingly enough, let me look down here really quickly and see, is this still the case these days? So, funnily enough, the Russian viewers still make up a larger number than the Ukrainian viewers we get. I don't know how that works. I guess some Russians have VPNs, like Slava Free Something, who's a Russian, and they're just watching the show. But we get about 6.5 thousand views from Russia over the past 28 days, and Ukraine makes up I think it's like 6.4, 6.3. It's not that much farther below Russia, but it is a little bit below them. But still, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel keep on running. I hope we addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to David Kendall, who puts in a 10 and says, plums for Alan.
Hey, plums for Alan, baby! Alan! And you know what we got to do, Matthew? You know what's coming up.
Pull out the marmot. Bring him out. Don't hold him back. Let him out.
Let that thing breathe. Oh, hello there. Oh, it's the marmot, baby.
Hello there, Governor. How you doing, Governor? Would you care for a plum? Would you care for some rock? Would you care for some very thick tail? We have tail for sale, they say, in Britain. Oh, my goodness. Have some tail. But as to Fly, what's he offering?
I'm offering crack rocks and lighters.
No, that's not permitted. You stop that right now.
Oh, man. I make fun of everything about them, but when they make fun of me, it's unacceptable. I just want them to be here for me. That fly's got 8 legs, though, dude. Like, I don't know who drew that fly, but I always notice that. It's an 8-legged fly. It's a spider fly. Spider fly, spider fly. Does whatever a spider can. Shoots a web.
I don't even know why. I don't even know why the guy painted in a fly to this painting right here. But why ever he did it, it turned out great. I'm telling you what. The hot dog man fits perfectly for the fly.
I'm telling you what, man. Really does. And I got to thank you so much for providing some support to the Plum Fund, David Kendall, for Alan the Marmot. The incredible, impressive marmot. And I got to thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to be possible and helping us keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here, right now. And so with that, Thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ben Ite, who puts in a 10 and says, what person in history could outwit a drone? Sprinter, football player, MacGyver?
Dang, outsmart a drone. That's a good question.
Whoever can run the fastest, I think the sprinter.
Usain Bolt. He might be able to stand a chance, but I don't even think he could really outrun a drone, to be entirely honest. Because he'd be running in a straight line, so it would kind of be easy for a drone to get him.
He'd probably snap his legs if he did that, because you have to be able to shoot off to the left or right really fast, because running in a straight line will get you finished.
Man, he would break his own ankles, like trying to get away from that thing. I would say MacGyver probably. Out of those three, I would say MacGyver, because MacGyver could probably come up with like a jamming device, maybe, and that might be able to give him a chance. But I don't know. But I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David Kendall once again, and he puts in a 10 this time. And also he said, can you take a look into this person? Take your time later. And Enforcer, who is this person?
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find some. They don't have a Wikipedia.
No wiki?
No wiki. Do we have a wiki at this point? let me see if we do.
Man, can we have a Wikipedia? I mean, what's it take to get a Wikipedia?
So we don't have a Wikipedia.
Man, I want a wiki.
Wait, hang on. Let me go to Wikipedia itself and type that in and see if we have one. The Enforcer. So let's see here. Let's type that in. Comics, gaming. Let's see here. Crime, law enforcement. A mob enforcer and a law enforcer and an enforcer battering ram, which is used by the British police forces. And then also enforcer, a shoulder launch guided rocket weapon being developed by MBDA. And then let's see. People. Dang, they don't have me under people, the Enforcer. They don't. Also, apparently, Enforcer is a cut-down pistol configuration of the M1 carbine made by Ivor Johnson. Okay, so there's an actual interesting amount of Enforcers, different kinds of Enforcers. But still, sadly, we have no Wikipedia. But Pascal Lotaz has no Wikipedia either. And let me see what we got here. Let's see here. Neutrality studies, international relations, diplomatic history, diplomacy studies, global history of World War II. Current research projects, permanent neutrality, a model for peace, security, and justice. Swedish-Japanese relations during World War II. That's actually a really interesting one. Swiss-Japanese relations during World War II. The neutrals and the bomb. Dude, the neutrals and the bomb sounds like a romance story, man. I'm not gonna lie. But let's see here. It looks like this guy is actually well researched. I don't know any of his works personally, but it seems as though he has a pretty good background in things. So I'll have to look into him a little bit more. But still, sounds like the guy is pretty well researched, I'd have to say, at least off of a first glance. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for making this channel possible. And so with that, thank you once again. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Jaden Saxman. He says, it sounds like LSA was forged in fire. Glory to Ukrainian LSA. And my question is, what are your thoughts on the old Diamondback missile? And would there be a use for something like it now, or is it a relic?
And I would have to say that, good question. What are your thoughts on the old Diamondback missile? Let me go pull that up. Diamondback missile. The Diamondback missile. Let's see, a nuclear-armed air-to-air missile. That's actually not that out of date. Sure, I mean, you know, the idea of blowing up a nuclear bomb in high altitude is a little bit questionable these days. It's not out of date, however, because the concept was, at least at the time, that guidance of a missile was not that fine-tuned. So instead of getting it directly onto an aircraft and having the missile explode around the aircraft, they just blow up a nuclear bomb up there and wipe out a whole bomber formation. That was the idea. The concept of using one in the modern day, it's kind of a little dated because of precision guided weapons, but it's not really out of the question, especially if you're dealing with a large aircraft formation, which you wouldn't really see, but if you did see one, that would probably be a good weapon to use against it, because instead of having to use multiple different missiles, you just have the one missile that goes up there and blows everything up. So it's not a bad idea. It's just that nowadays precision-guided missiles really have removed that out of the war-fighting toolkit, if you want to call it that. Also, Matthew, I was told really just a moment ago that apparently the LSA has a Wikipedia page, and
I looked already. It's like a page that shows you all the things LSA could stand for, but sadly, the Leaf Spring Army is not listed there yet.
Dang. I wonder if one day there will be an enforcer Wikipedia and also an LSA Wikipedia, which would be incredibly cool to see. But who knows? Maybe it'll pop up, maybe it won't. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, let's see here. I see the Miss Disa sent me something. Everybodywiki.com. This isn't a Wikipedia, but it is a wiki, and it actually has Leaf Spring Army on it, and it refers to us, actually, right here on the thing, and as a reference to our YouTube channel on the exact video where we said that. I'm assuming that maybe Miss Disa made this, because this is too well researched to be just random. So this is probably what this is, but there it is. It's on a different Wikipedia site. We have one.
So what is the name of that website? Let's go take a look at it.
Here, let me copy and paste a link.
In the Discord?
Yes.
Anything that we cannot show in the Discord before I pop it open?
No, it looks clean to me.
All right, looking clean. All right, there we go. So let's pop that up. Leaf Spring Army. Man, there's like a million ads on this page. Jeez. But let's see here. Leaf Spring Army. Community viewer enforcer coined LFA after the LFA. It's actually LSA. But let's see. Old and redundant suspension system later to be corrected in force in chat. The community has been raising money to support humanitarian organizations that are involved in different conflicts through fundraisers since February 2022. So it's a really short one, but we do have a Leaf Spring Army page on everybodywiki.com, which is really cool to know that it has a Wikipedia page at all. That's pretty cool. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what we know. And thank you, Miss Disa, for sharing that with us. I didn't even know that something like that existed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, the LFA is a nice car, though. That's not the LSA, but the LFA is a good car. They used to make way back in the day. Nice V10. But anyways, our next super chat goes to P. Sar, who puts in a 5 and says, 1 year anniversary of When I Doubt Ya channel, +2, skip Sunday to donate directly. And thanks, Prigozhin. Only reason I originally clicked here.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, PSAR, and helping this channel to keep on running. And that is something that we've always had a problem with, PSAR. You're not the only one. Is that a lot of people generally mistrust this channel because we usually get to news about 16 to 24 hours before everyone else even starts covering it. Which is usually why a lot of people come in and go, ugh, clickbait. And they did that back during the whole Prigozhin coup, because we literally started covering it, I think, within 30 minutes of it happening. Like, we had a live stream going and everything, and we also had a video that went out too that day, and people were like, man, you just lying, there's nothing going on. And then everyone else started covering it like 5 hours later, and then everyone was like, oh dang. And so that was something wild. That was also the same thing with the whole Israel-Iran thing, because you have so many people out there, especially prepper channels, that lie about everything, and they'll be like, oh my lord, war's beginning in between America and Russia, everyone's gonna die, and then it's not happening. And then when we do it, we are just assumed to be like the prepper people, like just saying whatever. But we actually make sure that we have picture and video evidence, and I gotta thank you so much, PSAR, for the support and having been here since then. And I gotta say thank you for being here, and thank you for enjoying it so far. And with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, we got a poll to address. It says, what was the most dramatic LSA oh crap moment? 50%, the popular option, said the Battle of Hot Dog the Terrible, while 29% said the Moscow Mike incident, and 22% said the Great Mod Schism. And I have to say, that's actually ranked the way I would rank it. Number 1 being Battle of Hot Dog Man the Terrible, because we were lobbing some nukes in that battle. The nukes were on the table, and we had to bring them out as a last resort. And it ended up terrible. And Hot Dog Man, kind of like Putin will eventually do, tore his own country and his community apart and destroyed it from within. He did it himself. But there were some nukes lying around that could have been used, but they weren't. And also, the Moscow Mike incident, second place. I would say yes, that is a good second place. And the third place, the Great Mod Schism. The Great Mod Schism, like in retrospect, actually turned out to be not that big of an event in the scheme of other things that have happened in the future. But, the Great Mod Schism, it was its own. It was its own deal. That was the first real experience we had with treachery. And then it got even more treacherous from there. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say, that's about the way I'd rank it. To be quite honest, the Great Mod Schisms, both the first and the second one, to be honest, don't even really register to me anymore as major events. They were more so minor events in the channel's history, because they didn't really amount to anything at all in the long-term picture. Now, the Moscow Mike incident was a long-lasting one, and the Battle of Hot Dog and Terrible, or what we would say is the beginning of the Dark Ages on the channel, that was a pretty major event, because that was the only one that really affected the channel in any kind of a serious way. So I would have to say, yeah, I would go with those in that order of importance. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, we're now listed on Wikipedia, thanks to War Dispatch in the live chat. If you go to LSA on Wikipedia, the real Wikipedia, you'll see Leaf Spring Army. It says a group of YouTube users that are subscribed to the channel The Enforcer. So we're now there. We are right there on the page. I love to see it. Thank you very much.
Hey, and let me go really quickly and type in LSA. Oh dang, LSA. There we go. And then we go down to organizations. Hey, look at that. We're on Wikipedia now. Look at that.
What is that?
A group of YouTuber users that are subscribed to the channel The Enforcer. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Now, Miss Disa could get to work on this, Matthew, and could actually make like a entire like novel about the channel's history and everything, which would be pretty cool. But hey, that would be neat. That would be so cool. But with that, thank you so much for making that. That was incredibly cool of you, War Dispatch UMW. And thank you for finally giving us a page on the Wikipedia. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Shoigu's Ghost. He says, "Did you notice that Gerasimov and I are now wanted men? Bah ha ha. Just try to get me. Ha ha.
I did.
Ha ha ha.
But still,
yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
but still, thank you so much for the support, Shoigu's Ghost. Shoigu! At the number, and also, I don't think I have to worry about getting you because you're a ghost. Like you ghoulish. Ooh. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, huge shout out to Carrie N LSA, who put in a 5 as well and said, "Doing a great job as always, guys. LSA for life."
And thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And thanking, I thank you so much greatly, Carrie Ann, for helping this channel to keep on running. I thank you for being a part of the first LSA couple, and I thank you for always being here, and Nick LSA being here, and enjoying this channel, and always wanting to see it to do its best, and supporting it so that way we hopefully can continue to do our best well on into the future. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Keymaster, who puts in a 5. And also, shout out to Strategy You Didn't Know, who put in a 2. And a huge shout out to Keymaster and Strategy very much for that support and helping keep the channel running. And we also have a 5 from Jack Ray. He said, "The Ukrainians call the Russians when their pantsiers down."
That's a good one. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Jack Ray, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for putting in a good joke. I like that. That was a good one-liner. I respect it. I respect it a lot. And so with that, we are on to the final super chat, and then we're going to be getting on into them live chat questions. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Knox, who puts in a 5 and says, "Do you think this war could start World War III? I'm new to the channel, and you guys provide good information, and thank you. And also, helps my anxiety, and thank you again."
Thank you so much. We hear that a lot about helping out with anxiety, and I'm so happy that this channel does that because, to be quite honest with you, Knox State, no one else really does that at all. Like, helps with anxiety. Everyone likes to heighten anxiety about the war. We try and lower it as best we can because it's an unavoidable reality of life right now. So whether we freak y'all out or help y'all's nerves be at ease, it's still going to be going on. So I'd rather make sure that we have a positive impact on folks and their well-being instead of a negative one. But to answer your question, It can start World War III, sure, but its chances of doing that are fairly low, in my opinion. We've of course been making sure to try and keep it contained to Ukraine as best as we can. It looks like we're still succeeding at that, so I feel like it's a very high chance, a 90 to 95% chance, that this war would remain a internalized war inside of Ukraine. And it will not devolve into a world war. I always say these two things. This will probably not turn into a world war, and it will never go nuclear. You can be guaranteed of that being pretty much a rule on this channel, unless if we ever get information that is so clear to the contrary that we have to bring it up. Because people love to bring up the end of the world, World War III, and nuclear war endlessly on YouTube because it draws in views, because people are scared, like you would be, Knox State, and naturally so. When people hear that kind of stuff, you just become scared because of the implication. But the reality is that the chances of that happening are incredibly low, and we always make sure to try and make that as clear as possible in everyone's minds that as long as people play this right, nuclear war and World War III will probably never happen. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Knox State. I hope that does address that well. And we actually have one last super chat to address before we move on into dim live chats. And so what do we got, Matthew?
So for our last super chat, we have one from Jack Ray, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much, Jack, for that support. He said, but wait, there's more. Monies.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the support, Jack Ray, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who make this channel possible, who help it to keep on running, Jack Ray, that make it a reality for us to be here and get to talk about all kinds of fun things. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are now finally into the live chat questions. And we're going to be answering live chats probably for the next 10 to 12 minutes. Because I want to make sure that we can round this thing out, hopefully at a reasonable time. We're not wanting to make it a marathon tonight. But with that, we are on to the first live chat of the night. And I know it's got to be them Morse code decoders.
So we have the people that decipher the beep beeps and the boop boops. And tonight it was Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse for tonight says Russia is dealing with tougher and tougher times with weaker and weaker men. And long live the LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to say that is absolutely incredible that you folks were able to get that message correct again tonight. And I got to say, huge congratulations to y'all. 853rd day of the war, and still killing it. Killing it, Jerry, killing it. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our first live chat question is going to go to Gold, who brings up a question that we have dealt with a lot. And they said, if you were the president of the United States, how would you respond to Zelensky's friendliness to China?
I would respond. That's and also we've gone down rabbit holes on this, Gold, so many times on previous live streams. So I'm gonna shorten this down a little bit. More than we would the other ones, but it's still going to be a bit of a lengthy response. There is no good things to come of a Ukrainian-Chinese friendship. It is only a way for the Chinese to get a backdoor into Ukraine and undermine Western efforts that have been going on for 2 years now and have cost tens of billions, if not over $100 billion collectively, maybe even $200 billion. It is a terrible thing. I don't think it's a smart thing. It does not matter how Zelensky plays it. The Chinese will find a way to take that as an advantage and run with it. So I would personally, as president of the United States, strongly dissuade Zelensky from having any relations with the Chinese. I'm not going to say that he openly condemns the Chinese. I'm just going to say, don't talk to them. Don't say anything about them. Don't say anything good. Don't say anything bad. Just don't do anything with them. And then if Zelensky persisted on trying to have friendly Chinese relations, I would then have to threaten that the United States will withdraw further military and economic support entirely from Ukraine if they do not stop their attempts at trying to create a friendship with the Chinese. Because if we are going to spend tens of billions of dollars supporting Ukraine, I am not going to spend that with the intention of that all being dumped down the drain and pretty much into Chinese pockets because they reap all the benefits at the end of this war. That would be ridiculous to work off of as an assumption for the United States. And considering that as the president of the United States, my sole and primary concern is the interest of this nation and its intentions, or really its goals in the world. my primary goal is insulating the United States from creating bad decisions or doing things that would be detrimental to our nation. So while that may, in the end, if Zelensky decided to go, I still want to be friends with China, while that may, in the end, screw them over, I'm not going to screw over America in the process of getting nothing in return. That would be generally the way I would look at that. It sounds a little aggressive, yes, but when we're talking about something that is that dangerous, the Chinese getting a foot into mainland Europe off of the American dollar being put into support to Ukraine, I consider that to be a very serious risk to Western interests, at least in Eastern Europe. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And of course, we could talk about that for like 30 minutes. And we have one stream, and I went through multiple different things. And I'm sure many people who were here tonight heard that before. And I think a lot of people started to agree with me by the end when I went through the whole analysis of why this is a terrible thing and this should not be allowed. It's a really in-depth thing, but trust me, bro, on this. I will get into like a 30-minute rabbit hole on this maybe like in a week or so, but it is a terrible thing. It is something that should be a no-go, and I believe that we should make sure that Ukraine has no relations, either positive or negative, with the Chinese going forward. They can sell grain to them, but that's it. And that should be all that they are doing. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, Gold. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a very interesting question from David Long. He said, Enforcer Matt, if you were the leader of Russia, so I'm apparently the bad guy, but he said, and the Enforcer was the leader of Ukraine, what would you do differently to achieve a victory to win the war? And I will say this, I will play along as the devil's advocate here and take on the role of the bad guy for just a moment. What I would do if I was in charge of Russia, and this is all hypothetically speaking because I cannot stand what the Russians are doing. They're doing horrible in Ukraine, things like that. But if I was looking at it from a strategic standpoint, I would basically try to drag the war out as long as I could and basically hold my ground, kind of like the Russians are doing right now, so that way I can manufacture enough equipment to replace the current losses, and also try to recruit as many new military soldiers as I could off the streets, try to train them as best you could to get ready for a larger offensive push further down the road. But right now, the biggest weakness Russia's having is being able to manufacture equipment fast enough and also get enough competent manpower to replace their current losses, because they're losing people like crazy and they can't keep up. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are not losing people at nearly the extensive rate the Ukrainians are, but Ukraine can replace their stuff a lot easier because they have the West behind them. But Russia doesn't really have that. They just have China sneaking some things under the table and giving them to them, which is not nearly as good as the West giving you equipment. So if I was playing the devil's advocate, that's what I would try to do. But Enforcer, what would you do different in Ukraine?
If I was the president of the Russian Federation and I was seeking to try and find a way either to prolong the war or win the war for the Russian Federation, what I would do as the Russian Federation is create a severe diplomatic incident with the Indians and try and push them closer to the United States of America, so that way it would look as though, at least on an outwards perspective, the United States of America would start to become a common enemy of China and Russia, because with the United States moving into the area with India and trying to pursue India's claims over the Kashmir region that China claims, and also making sure to protect the region of Arunachal Pradesh, that would probably start to push the Chinese into their de facto mindset of securing border integrity and national security, which means that they will do anything at that point, any measure possible, to make sure to thwart whoever is working against their interests, which means that we would see the most strong and reactive response from the Chinese to U.S. involvement and support of India in their border disputes. We would probably see that the Chinese would actually start to support Russia with lethal aid, because they would consider the Ukraine war to be a proxy war against the United States, and so by doing that, they would start to support Russia, and Russia would be able to start getting an upper hand, at least financially, through the course of the war. And I just saw someone say, why India instead of Taiwan? Well, with Taiwan, it's hard for Russia to create any diplomatic incidents because they don't really have any good connections with Taiwan. On the other hand, Russia has an unlimited amount of connections with India, specifically their sales of oil and raw resources to their state. So if you created a diplomatic incident where you could say that Russia was outraged, absolutely infuriated, like for example, let me take this. I think it's late enough in the stream, this won't matter. Let's take the group that's in Dagestan right now, and let's say, they're Islamic. India is made up of 27% Islamic peoples, and India is in a cabal with Pakistan right now to support this group and have them to kill Russian people. We can't support this anymore. We're cutting off all of our exports to India. Yes, that would hurt Russia financially, at least for a small period of time. But then India would go, "Oh dang, we're cut off of raw materials. We've got to get that somewhere." Then they would look to America, because they're not going to look towards the Chinese. They're in big border disputes with them currently, so they would look towards America instead, because they're the only country that would be able to get them into an economic sphere that would get them those raw materials again. So then they would join the United States sphere. That would, of course, speed up anti-Chinese interests, which is a big thing for China, but at the same time, that would freak them out and put them into hyperdrive, because the most important thing to the Chinese, it's not Marxist-Leninist ideals, it is national security. It is stopping Western countries from having any interference in internal Chinese affairs, and also their aims of trying to secure their borders, or what claims to be their borders, which has a lot to do with India. So then they're going to freak out and go, "Oh shit, India is American aligned now, and now they have the backing of the United States when going into these border disputes. We can't have this, and we need to start putting America at a disadvantage wherever we can around the world. So now we need to support the Russians and their war in Ukraine." And so while it seems like a whole bunch of gymnastics we're doing here, this is probably the best way that the Russians could actually get the Chinese onto their side, which would be a lot more important in the end, because out of the two, it would be bigger for the Russians to have China as an ally than India, because India right now is an emerging economy. China is an emerged economy. They are already incredibly large and have a lot of economic backing. So they would be able to actually financially fund the Russians. So while the Russians might lose the Indians, they would gain the Chinese in exchange. So if I was the president of the Russian Federation, that would be the kind of diplomatic game I would play, because then Russia would have pretty much a fairly unlimited financial backing, much like Ukraine has currently from the West. And then it would truly be an unending war of attrition until one side broke or the other. And then at that point, that would take years. And who knows who would win, but it would at least prolong the war and give Russia a greater chance at success. So if I was the president of the Russian Federation, that's what I would do. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right. And also, by the way, I was going to make a quick point real quick about what I was saying about what I would do if I was in charge of Russia. What the Russians are currently doing right now is they are holding their ground. They're trying to hold the ground that they've taken in Ukraine. And they're doing that sort of unsuccessfully right now, really, because the Ukrainians are slamming them pretty hard. But the reason why the Russians simply can't sit there and wait and just simply be patient while they're taking their losses in the trenches is because they have to keep trying to make these small offensives on cities like Kharkiv for propaganda reasons, to try to keep the morale of the citizens high, because if they don't do that, they know they're going to have some problems with the people, because their sons are going to die in a foreign country unless there's something to show for it. And they're like, "Oh, look, we took something. Oh, yay." They simply cannot wait and sit there and hold their ground and try to replenish their forces and their equipment. They can't do it because of the propaganda reason. But just to elaborate a little bit more on what I was saying. But anyways, we're jumping into our next question here. And this one goes to Artillery First Sergeant, who said, "Where are the freaking F-16s? There's only 5 days left in June, and the last I heard, some were supposed to be delivered this month."
Yes, you are correct, but then they pushed it back to September. I know, it's outrageous, it's annoying, it is, I have to agree, but that's the last we heard, is that now they're going to show up in September, and then they'll probably get pushed back to November after that, and then we'll be looking at them arriving in the early part of next year. We swear, guys, we swear. But that's what we know at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are now on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and this question goes to Walrus, and he says, "Did you hear about the U-2 that flew over Pyongyang on flight radar?"
No, I did not. And also, that would be really bizarre if they did fly a U-2 over North Korea, because North Korea actually has the ability, at least from what we know, to possibly shoot that down, because they got pretty close to shooting down an SR-71 Blackbird back in the day. So if that did happen, pretty wild, but I'm personally doubting that, because the North Koreans would have the technological ability, even though it's very limited, to be able to shoot it down. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I'll look into that more and corroborate that to make sure I'm correct on that or not. But I would generally doubt something like that just off of the face of it. But I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. I'm just saying that I'll have to look into it some more. But with that, that is the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. And of course, thank you all once again for making sure to enjoy the stream tonight. 59,000 people have watched the stream before it ended, and at the peak, there were 8.3 thousand people here. We were entirely honored to have all of y'all here with us tonight. And of course, if y'all enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. You'll be joining the massive army that we have at this point of 231,021 subscribers. Absolutely incredible to see, and insane to think that we've gotten pretty much another, let me check. Yeah, about another 1,000 subscribers today. It was like 950. But still, thank you all so much once again for watching. And of course, I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, thank you all once again for another great stream tonight. And of course, we'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next nightly war news stream. And also midday tomorrow as well, if there's enough news to cover for a short war summary. And with that, thank you all once again. Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and get some rest and good night.
Yes.